I call to order the March 7th, 2022 Henderson County Board of Public Education Board meeting. Would all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Recognitions, Mr. Scott Rhodes.
The first person would. We're working some things out. The first person we would like to recognize is Mr. Doug Justice. And Mr. Justice, I want to embarrass you, but I want you to come on down. Now you're going to have to walk on down. So, board members, people in attendance, Mr. Justice here is getting ready to just retire here from Henderson County Public Schools, and just really want to point out the career that Mr. Justice has had here in Henderson County. As I started going over his career in my mind, it was easy. I didn't have to go back and look at a resume because we've been together for so long, but Mr. Justice has taught at all three levels, high school, middle school, and elementary. He left to go to Hickory to St. Stephen's High School, became the head football coach, had a successful career, and then we were able to recruit him back to North Henderson High School, where he served as the head football coach at North Henderson. Later on became an assistant principal at East Henderson High School, and then went on to serve at his latest job at the Career Academy Annex. Some things I really want to point out. The job that Mr. Justice has done at the Career Academy Annex is one that people should know he and his staff have worked nothing short of miracles. Folks, the graduation rate of some of our most challenging and at-risk students is greater than 75%. And it's because of his leadership that exists. Some of the traits that when I started thinking about to describe him, his relationships, his integrity, his work ethic. But I got to tell you, his ability to reach students, both as a coach and as a teacher and as an administrator, will be greatly missed. Not to mention, his greatest asset is storytelling. If you want to be around someone who can tell a great story, this is Mr. Justice. Henderson County Public Schools, we're lucky to have you. We're going to miss you, and we appreciate everything that you've done. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
And while Mr. Justice is going to take a moment to sit down, I just want to reiterate what you heard from Mr. Rhodes. Mr. Justice is one of the most relational leaders you'll ever meet. This is one of the individuals who has constantly stepped up and said, I'll do whatever needs to be done, and I'll do it well, and I'll do it with integrity, and I'll do it with compassion, and I'll do it with absolute service to students. And we cannot thank him enough. As Mr. Rhodes said, Mr. Justice's leadership at the Annex has been nothing short of miraculous. The work that he's done there and the environment that he's created. And all of us are better because we've had a chance to work with him. So appreciate Mr. Justice. And again, I know he's already retired, so the fact that he came on a night in which he's already retired, that is a big business. So we appreciate you, Mr. Justice.
Summerstop, would you come on down real quick? Board members, I know that this stop needs no introduction to our board, but we really want to be able to say thank you for your service to our school system. Summer came on with us in December of 2016 and has really transformed and put her fingerprint on the education foundation. From improving our Hall of Fame celebration to our golf tournament with everything that she's put her finger on, has been nothing short of first class. And did I mention she's a graduate of West Henderson High School? Got a little theme going here. Summer, we appreciate you. We wish you nothing but the best in your next adventure, but we so appreciate everything that you've done for Henderson County Public Schools. And our school system is a better place because of you.
Now, Summer goes to sit down back there. I get to say a word or two about her as well. Again, one of the things that Summer has done that I don't think any of us could have predicted was she stepped into a space and said, how can the Education Foundation become an integral part of everything that we do? Not just a part of what we do, but an integral part. And she started to begin a conversation with so many of us that said, we want to make sure that everything the foundation does moves the school system forward, from learning opportunities to the initiatives and the celebrations and otherwise. But Summer is one of those people that can work a 90-hour work week every week and make it look effortless. And we are so very fortunate to have spent our mornings together. She joined us in our Monday morning strategy sessions as we think about how we lead the school system and the work that we do, and always brought such a unique and powerful perspective to that. And if there was a better unifier of people in this community, I don't know who they are. And so we are just so very blessed and fortunate to get to say, call Summer a friend and a colleague, and are so grateful that she's staying in the community. So we appreciate you, Summer. Yes, ma'am.
And as we're definitely sad that we're losing two valuable members of our school system, we do want to recognize, come on down, Peggy. We do want to recognize someone who is coming back to our school system. Again, Peggy Marshall needs no introduction to you as a board, but just want to point out to everyone how lucky and how fortunate we are to have Peggy coming back home to serve and work with Henderson County Public Schools. Peggy, as most of you, if you don't know, she was a teacher here in Henderson County for a number of years and went on to become a principal. Not only just a principal, but she went on to become our district principal of the year and then the regional principal of the year for Region 8. She was implemented Leader in Me at 2 different schools, so much so that she did such a great job that the Covey Institute wanted to hire her away and gave her a reason to retire. But we've given her a reason to come back home. She is an East Henderson High School graduate, and again, there's a theme here that all 3 of these individuals are homegrown. And so we are so happy that you're coming back to lead our Education Foundation and that you're going to put your fingerprint on this as well. Welcome home. We're glad to have you.
I get to turn my mic on one more time.
Well, I want to say something before you do. You know, I interviewed all the principals of 23 schools when I was running in 18. And everybody I scheduled an appointment with, Miss Marshall, I went to schedule an appointment with, and she said, oh, just come on. You know, because I went to do that. It was the first day of school, I think it was. And she's like, oh, just come on, just follow me. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I didn't really know what to do, but she said, follow me. I said, okay. So I was following her, talking with her, and the kids were just coming up and hugging her, and one after another. I mean, the whole time, and it was really cool to see how students really appreciated their principal. So I got to see firsthand, you know, so it was kind of cool. So good job.
Well, Mr. Egoff, that is a perfect segue because nobody better represents the passion of our purpose than Peggy Marshall. And you talk about leading with love. That's the way she's led. And stepping into that space, you can see she's got huge shoes to fill. But when you have an absolute rock star and a year-over-year all-star, how do you replace that person? You bring in a Hall of Famer, right? And you bring in a Hall of Famer like Peggy Marshall. And again, we are so fortunate to bring that leadership and that love that she starts with for students and for communities, that she would lead that foundation moving forward. So again, we're thrilled to have you, Peggy Marshall. Yes, ma'am. One more recognition as we talk about Hall of Famers and All-Stars and otherwise. I do want to just give a quick little shout out to the North Carolina Tar Heels. The Tar Heels were victorious on Saturday night. I don't know if anybody heard, but they did. Heels, yes, that's exactly right. The Tar Heels did beat the Blue Devils on their home floor, and so I just want to give a little shout out. You know, Coach Williams lives in Henderson County now, and so as the school system, we want to make sure that we represent that leadership properly. And so,
I love it.
congratulations to the North Carolina Tar Heels.
Leave that up all night, right?
That's right.
All right, moving on. Oh, you need to say something?
Oh, I was just going to ask Dr. Bryant, did our doctoral candidates successfully complete their dissertation defense?
Yes, ma'am. I get to introduce two of our school principals tomorrow when our principal meeting starts at 9 a.m. I was part of their dissertation defense period, and Dr. John McDarris and Dr. Caitlin Davis now lead Rugby Middle School and Apple Valley Middle School, respectively. So thanks for calling that out. Yes, ma'am, absolutely. Great opportunity for them. We'll give them a round of applause there as well.
I actually saw them Saturday, and they also coach kindergarten and first graders in basketball on the weekends, so they're busy. Next up, we're going to have board chair observations. I have none, so board member observations. Yes, ma'am. Put your green light. Green light.
Ryan Mitchell, who's been our school teacher of the year, and Marcia Justice, who's been the principal of the year regionally. They've both had their interviews, and they're waiting now to hear from the state. So hopefully, 1st of April, we'll have 2 winners there.
Remember, we want them to finish second.
Yeah, because then they leave us after.
No, we want them to finish first and recognize Henderson County, but we joke with them because anytime you're the state representative there, we lose you for a period of time. So we want to keep them with us.
I would just like to say I volunteer at Clear Creek from 9 to 11 every Wednesday, and I would, you know, it's just being with the second graders every week is just awesome. So I know Miss Case knows the feeling. I know a lot of our teachers know the feeling. But just being with second graders week after week after week is awesome. So I would welcome, you know, anybody that wants to volunteer at a local school, and it's cool. So I love being there Wednesdays at 9 to 11, Clear Creek.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
I would just like to make a comment about, Mrs. Case and I visited Apple Valley Middle School on Wednesday, and the person who showed us around was Assistant Principal Brent Stepp, and because Dr. Davis was defending her dissertation. But we see a lot of school visits, and they're always really good. It was first and foremost wonderful to see our children and them working so hard in a face-to-face environment, but particularly the very intentional instruction that we saw at Apple Valley. I'm telling you, I will not doubt if some really good student learning outcomes are not evident this spring with that school, because those teachers were working very hard using those highly effective strategies very consistently, and it was just very, very great to see kids being that engaged in their instruction. Hats off to Apple Valley.
Yes, ma'am. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on to public comments. And the first is going to be Indion Jackson. You're going to have 3 minutes today. Just wanted to remind everyone, we cut off digital submissions, so we are no longer having digital comments. Being that we're in person, we're here, we're live. If you'd like to have a comment, you can, of course, email us. But if you want to do it in public, please come to the board meetings. The floor is yours, Ms. Jackson.
I only prepared 1 minute.
Hey.
You know, so like, I can kind of be slow. You know, I was gonna just blurt it out, but okay. So you know I'm here by now. I'm gonna keep coming and just trying to keep putting critical race theory in your ear. If you don't feel comfortable teaching that in our school systems, if we can at least come to a point where we can at least talk about how to get there, or if we can figure out just a way to start. We got to start somewhere. We can't be dismissive towards the history just because we're uncomfortable with it. The story is only true if it's told in full. And so, I mean, to tell half a story is basically telling a lie. These are valid concerns that I bring to you. It's not just me complaining or me trying to bring like Black Lives Matter or anything like that. It's just, you know, valid concerns about what's taught in our school systems, and the fact that true history should be taught from the beginning. The courage to say that you're wrong, Mr. Egoff, at the last meeting, you know, you expressed the fact that you may have got it wrong as far as with the mask situation. You expressed your concerns on how on some information that you were getting in your ear one way turned out to be the same information, but we're now having different results. You were able to admit when you were wrong. And so if we can just not get to that point, Henderson County has had a history of not getting to the issue of race. From the start of integration, like I said, I believe it was 13 years later that we finally integrated. It took a lot of people, a lot of boards getting together in order to get that done. And so hopefully we can just come together before all of that has to happen. One last thing is representation. Blair, I don't know if you understand the impact that you have. My son spoke a little while ago, and he had got some backlash, and you really stood up for him. For him to see a Black man in your position, to be able to stand up like that unapologetically is a huge deal. And to have that not only here, but in the classrooms, and to just see an effort is just extremely important. And so if we can just start to talk about these things. I know y'all said that, someone said that they would reach out to Crystal, who is part of an African American Parent Association, and no one has reached out yet. I know this thing gets put on the back burner a lot, so if we can just try to get to it. I made that 3 minutes almost, so y'all have a good day, though. That's all.
Last one for today is Joe Elliott. Welcome, sir.
I think it's probably good that we got 3 minutes because it's going to take me 2 to get up here. Thanks for your time, by the way. I often see unflattering comments about teachers on social media, and I want to balance the equation a little bit. I want to address my remarks to those school teachers. I spent 40 years in educational publishing all over the country. My sister taught special needs kids for 35 years. My oldest daughter is director of special needs programs in a large school district. And I have 4 grandkids in K-12. So I know intimately teaching is a calling. I know that teachers put in long hours for low pay while often burdened with large college debts. Yet, teachers do this because they understand that their profession is crucial to shaping the next generation of American citizens. They do it out of love for their students and with an unflinching dedication to helping each student be the best that they can be. They accept that in addition to teaching curriculum content, reading, math, science, history, they are also expected to guard our children against a host of societal and social media challenges. We cannot pay them enough, nor can we thank them enough. God bless them.
Thank you very much. All right, next up is the consent agenda. We are going to have an amendment to the personnel item C, so I'll take a motion on that consent agenda with the amended personnel item.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Consent's approved. We have no old business, so we are going to go on to new business, which is the current face covering guidance and policy.
Mr. Craven?
Yes, sir.
before we do that, we have a series of resolutions.
Oh,
that-
let's read some resolutions.
Sir, if you don't mind.
Okay, who would like Public School Volunteer Week? Any takers? All right, Ms. Holt.
Resolution honoring the observance of Public School Volunteer Week, April 18th through to the 22nd, 2022. Whereas parent and community involvement is a significant factor in the success of our schools, and whereas by becoming a volunteer, parents and community members are providing an invaluable contribution to the education of students, and whereas volunteers assist teachers and staff with the day-to-day activities involved in providing a balanced education for our students and are an important part of a team that works to ensure that all of our students succeed. And whereas we are grateful for the many ways in which volunteers contribute to our schools, and whereas by working together we create a new sense of community and of shared responsibility for our future, and whereas we sincerely appreciate our dedicated volunteers for sharing their time and talents with the children in our community. Now therefore be it resolved by the Henderson County Board of Public Education that in honor of the special people who volunteer, April 18th through the 22nd, 2022, shall be observed by the Henderson County Public Schools as Public School Volunteer Week, adopted the 7th day of March, 2022.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have We Are Hope Week. Anybody like to take that one? All right, Ms. Caskey, you got We Are Hope Week. I'm gonna assign them.
Resolution honoring the observance of We Are Hope Week in Henderson County Public Schools, middle and high schools, March 7th through 11th, 2022. Whereas substance and alcohol abuse negatively affects many areas of the brain, the liver, the heart, and other body parts and can cause adverse behavioral, psychological, and social consequences. And whereas there were 91,799 drug overdose deaths in the United States in 2020, with opioids involved in 68,630, or 75% of these. And whereas substance and alcohol abuse continues to occur among children and youth in North Carolina. In 2019, 35.5% of high school students and 14.4% of middle school students used an electronic vape product, 24.2% of students in high school and 20.4% of students in middle school drank alcohol, 16.6% of high schoolers and 8% of middle schoolers took prescription drugs without a doctor's prescription, and 22.1% of high schoolers and 10.5% of middle schoolers used marijuana, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention 2019 Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance. And whereas student leaders in the Henderson County Public Schools, 6 high schools and 4 middle schools have joined with local organization Hope Coalition in educating their peers on alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and prescription drug use and abuse. And whereas students at Apple Valley Middle, Flat Rock Middle, Hendersonville Middle, Rugby Middle, East Henderson High, Henderson County Career Academy, Henderson County Early College, Henderson High, North Henderson High, and West Henderson High are making commitments to be substance-free. Now therefore be it resolved by the Henderson County Board of Education that March 7th through 11th, 2022 be observed in Henderson County Public Schools, middle and high schools as We Are Hope Substance Abuse Awareness Week, adopted the 7th day of March, 2022.
Thank you, Ms. Caskey. And Mr. Craven and members of the board, if I could recognize a few people who are here right now as it relates to that. This is this week as it relates to our partnership with Hope Coalition, and it takes an entire community to do this important work. I want to thank Michelle Geiser for being here with the Hope Coalition as well, our Director of Student Services, Mr. Matthew Grubmeyer, who is critically important to this work, our Public Information Officer, Ms. Molly McGowan-Gorsuch, when it comes to that. Also from North Henderson High School, Madison White, who's here right now. Wave a little bit, there you go. Absolutely want to say thank you. And again, East Henderson High School students Rachel Outlaw, Jordan Brown, and Jessica Pachko. I think that's correct, Pachko. These students lead the work on a daily basis. When it comes down to what is important about We Are Hope, it is student leadership, student involvement, student engagement, because we know how powerful that piece is. And we are very grateful to Hope Coalition for the partnership in that work, and look forward to, later in this week, hanging the banners at the courthouse as we've done annually each year, signifying those commitments. And so I just really would like to give our students a hand in recognition of this resolution.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. And the next one is going to be the National Social Work Month, and being that my wife is a social worker, I will gladly take this one. Resolution honoring the observance of National Social Work Month, March 2022. Whereas the social work profession is dedicated to enhancing well-being and helping meet the basic needs of all people, especially those who are vulnerable, oppressed, and living in poverty. And whereas social workers are the largest group of providers of mental health services in the United States, and are active in government, the military, schools, universities, social service agencies, communities, corporations, and health and mental health care settings across North Carolina. And whereas for decades, social workers have advocated rights for people of all races, genders, ethnicities, cultures, abilities, socioeconomic backgrounds, religions, sexualities, and other identities. And whereas social workers in our schools elevate and empower students and families, giving them the tools to solve problems, cope with personal roadblocks, and achieve both personally and academically. And whereas social workers are present in our schools, helping students, staff, and families overcome the effects of developmental and more recent trauma such as loss and grief. And whereas social workers serve as valuable student and family advocates, connecting them with school and community resources to satisfy their academic, physical, socio-emotional, and economic needs. And whereas school social workers are instrumental in leading the valuable network of professionals who support student mental health, including school psychologists, nurses, counselors, other specialists, and administrators. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Henderson County Board of Public Education that March 2022 be observed in the Henderson County Public Schools as National Social Worker Month, adopted the 7th day of March 2022. Two more. We have one, arts in our schools. Anybody want to fight over it? All right.
Whereas March has been designated by the National Dance Education Organization as the Dance in Our Schools Month by the National Association for Music Education, as Music in Our Schools Month by the National Theater Association as Theater in Our Schools Month by the Council for the Arts Education as Youth Arts Month, and by the North Carolina State Board of Education as the Arts in Our Schools Month. And whereas arts education in North Carolina schools includes 4 separate and distinct disciplines: dance, music, theater arts, and visual arts, each with its own body of knowledge and skills. And whereas the arts have been part of life, the very beginning, and are inseparable part of the human journey, describing, defining, and deepening the human experience. And whereas all students, all students participating in arts education courses benefit from the skills and processes developed through the arts, and apply those skills in a variety of disciplines and settings, no matter their intended career paths. And whereas arts education contributes to students' development through heightened skills in listening, understanding human experiences, creative problem solving, adapting to and respecting others' diverse ways of thinking, communicating effectively, and analyzing nonverbal communication, reading, self-expression, imagination of humankind, creativity, and whereas arts education innovatively ignites and engages learners personally and enhances the social and emotional morale as well as the quality of all students and all school cultures by helping develop self-confidence, boost self-reliance, and increase empathy and compassion towards oneself and others. And whereas arts education is essential for all students in North Carolina as a part of a well-rounded education. Now therefore be it resolved by the Henderson County Board of Public Education that March 2022 be observed in Henderson County Public Schools as Arts in Our Schools Month, adopted this 7th day of March 2022.
Thank you so much, Ms. Case. And the last one, Mr. J. Egoff's going to read. Now, this is a resolution supporting local control of our school calendars, which has been something that this board has been very passionate about, and it's something that we're going to talk about later today. But we'd like to take this resolution, put it into the public record, and then also send it to our legislatures just to let them know where we stand on this. So this one came from us specifically. So, Mr. Egoff?
And I'll also say, we're not the only county in Western North Carolina. I've been in touch with other counties that support this resolution as well. And Ms. Holt and I were fighting over this, who was going to speak it. But since she had the first one, I won. But I also want to thank our representatives, Tim Moffitt, Chuck Edwards, and Jake Johnson, for fighting for this and agreeing for this. And I hope that Senator Phil Berger is as well as listening to this and can agree that school calendar flexibility is something that hurts no one but benefits the students of Western North Carolina and all the students in the state. But the resolution is supporting local control of school calendars, whereas the North Carolina General Statutes give local boards of education powers of supervision and control of local school systems, and whereas local control over establishing school calendars is an integral component of school system supervision and administrative powers with which local boards of education have been vested, and whereas in 2004, the North Carolina General Assembly seized control of setting school calendars and imposed a one-size-fits-all mandate on school calendars are to be set, and whereas the current one-size-fits-all school calendar start date is no earlier than the Monday close to August 26th, and the end date is no later than the Friday close to June 11th, and whereas the state-mandated late August start date means high schools do not complete the first semester until mid to late January, and whereas the current law essentially requires high school students to take first semester exams after the winter break, which negatively impacts test scores according to students and educators, and whereas the second semester for high schools start 2 to 3 weeks later than the community colleges and universities, and whereas superintendents report that the calendar misalignment makes it nearly impossible for high school students or recent winter graduates to take courses at a nearby community college or university, statewide university, during the second semester, and whereas exams for advanced placement and international baccalaureate classes are given on the same day nationwide, and the current calendar law shortens the amount of time North Carolina students have to learn the material before test day, and whereas it is well documented through multiple studies that children will experience a phenomenon known as summer learning loss, which has a disproportionate impact on low-income children, and whereas long summer breaks can also negatively impact child nutrition, as low-income children who have access to regular meals at school through the free and reduced price meal program may not have access to regular meals at school, and whereas with little flexibility built into the calendar, scheduling makeup days is extremely challenging, and whereas fall sports and band begin August 1st, schedules for extracurricular activities have not been changed to coincide with the state-mandated school calendar, And whereas local boards of education are best equipped to understand the balancing act of meeting the community's needs and maximizing student success, and whereas restoring local control of school calendars will allow local boards of education to best meet the calendar preferences of the families, educators, and businesses in our community while allowing for innovative experimental approaches to improve student achievement. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Henderson County Board of Public Education supports the efforts in the North Carolina General Assembly for local school calendar control and requests that local control over school calendars be returned to the local boards of education, adopted this day of March 2022. Amen.
And thank you to Dr. Bryant. I can see all the grievances just poured onto that page, but it all makes complete sense here. I'm just surprised it doesn't make complete sense in Raleigh. So, moving on, we have no old business, so we're going to skip on to new business. We're going to combine the return to learn update in the superintendent's reports with the current face cover guidance and policy. Take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Craven and members of the board. Appreciate the recognition through those resolutions of significant elements to this community, to our Board of Education. Return to Learn is an abbreviated one as community conditions continue to be on the positive trend. We talked about the slope of that line last time that we met, and it continues to dip just as we hoped and expected it would moving across the system. Our number as of today in Henderson County is 13.4. That rolling average, a dramatic decrease from where we saw ourselves in January. The alert system, again, recognizing that Henderson County is in one of those low positivity rates, continue to have positive data across not just our community, but communities across the state and across the country. We do continue to provide public information with regard to our COVID dashboard, that front-facing dashboard that communicates the totals associated with each school-affected community. And our current operations as of our February 14 board meeting, face coverings became optional for all students, staff, and adult visitors. And then as of February 25th, the CDC revised their group transportation guidance, and so they became optional on school buses and group transportation settings at that time. We are providing another layer of notifications per the information that's in the toolkit, but those are weekly totals, remembering again that we make a school-by-school call specific to totals associated with those school environments at the end of each week, and that began on Friday, February the 18th. The Strong Schools Toolkit provided some updated information that this board is familiar with. Again, it no longer required the quarantining of asymptomatic individuals or contact tracing associated with that, which was positive news. But Senate Bill 654 still does require that the board takes a vote on your current policy each or at least once a month. And so we are here gathered together today to do that. And it would certainly be our recommendation at this time that, as you can see, this is the map of North Carolina. The vast majority of North Carolina is masks optional at this time. Our summary thoughts are not new. They are our continued attention to our operations and otherwise. We are seeing single-digit case counts in our schools, and it'd be my recommendation that the current policy be maintained at this time. That's all I have. Glad to answer any questions.
Do we have to do
Microphone.
the Friday? Do we have to do the Friday call?
There really were three choices laid out as a recommendation. We could do a daily call, we could try to narrow and contact trace specifically, and we said no to that. Our dashboard probably technically meets the definition of the notification requirement, but it did say that you should provide some kind of automated information to families on either a daily or a weekly basis. So we chose what we felt like was the least intrusive option of all of the above. And based on our case numbers, those are even minimal at this point.
Okay, so are we gonna get a call if there are no cases?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay.
You'd only get a call if there are cases.
Okay.
Questions for Dr. Bryant? Well, I'll make a motion. I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the continuation of the current face covering guidance as presented, and that does include, as of February 25th, face coverings are optional while traveling on buses or other group transportation settings.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anybody opposed? It passes 7-0. Thanks, sir. All right, next. Okay. Next is going to be the traditional schedule calendar. Now,
Do
okay,
I need to read the resolution again?
yeah, we're going to need to do something. Good luck, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate this opportunity today.
Just, you have at it. It's all yours.
Well, good afternoon, board members.
Good afternoon.
I am pleased to be able to share with you today a traditional calendar. I believe you have seen it before, if memory serves me correctly. And so this proposed draft calendar does have a student start date of August 29th. The first semester does conclude the second week in January, and then the final student day is June 9th. As you look at this again at this meeting, I do want to add an additional note that the general statute does say that our school system needs to have a school calendar inserted into Power School by April 1st. So at this time, I will take any questions that you may have regarding this calendar.
And I just would like to echo Mr. Taylor's sentiment. The entire leadership team values and appreciates the advocacy for calendar change. It's been something we've been pushing for quite some time. We have some legal reporting requirements as it relates to how we communicate with the Department of Public Instruction regarding our calendar and instructional hours and otherwise. So in the absence of a calendar, that does put us in a position of not being able to meet that expectation. And so we recognize we all want calendar flexibility. We all want the legislation to change. It currently is unchanged, and we do present the calendar to you because we have an obligation to both submit that and report that. And I think it's just important that the board understand that part of it as well when we're advocating for calendar change. So I don't know, Ms. Lopez, is there anything you would want to speak to?
Yes, that's-
to that?
Your mic isn't on.
Mike? Yeah, no problem.
2 months ago, when I attended the meeting, I know you had a discussion, and we talked about the change in law that I guess the General Assembly had the opportunity when many districts had chosen not to follow the calendar law exactly, or they interpreted it differently, and the General Assembly's clarification was to define a year-round calendar, which made it clear that they believed that we should stick to, that we had no flexibility to start earlier. And that's still the law. You know, I don't know, you know, we talked about, well, what could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen? You know, that's kind of an unknown exactly, what could happen. So, you know, I'm glad to take or to try to answer any specific questions about it, but I know districts all over the state are really struggling with this right now.
Yeah,
There really is not a good answer to this.
None of us like it. None of us want this calendar. But I think we are statutorily required, we are statutorily required to pass a calendar. What I would like to state, if we can keep working on this, if this calendar gets passed today, that if by some chance something happens before June, we let our parents know now that we would change that calendar to something that would be a little bit better, hopefully moving that back to August 15th start date instead of August 29th, and then getting out of school. Can you scroll that up, Matthew? Thank you. Getting out of school on that May 31st as opposed to, or 26th as opposed to June the 9th. I know that we're all very passionate about this, but I think we owe it to our staff to put and our parents to put a calendar forward. So with that being said,
We're not going to vote yet.
we're
So,
not gonna vote yet.
Because I cannot, and I haven't voted yet, but I cannot vote in favor of this when I am sitting on the school board and I realize how detrimental this is to students in Henderson County Public Schools and statewide. I cannot sit on this school board and vote for this. That being said, I think Ms. Holt may have a statement about maybe if this is maybe 2 dates that maybe we can hold open, but as it sits now was 1 date, and as it I just cannot vote for this, knowing how detrimental this is to the students, and sit on the school board and say, this is all right with me. And I'm sorry if I'm the only one. I've been 6-1 before, and I'll be 6-1 again if that's the way it should be.
Can you go over again what our requirement is by DPI? Again,
You mean the reporting requirement?
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't, April 1st, I believe, is the date, but I'm going to have my people double check me on that. But April 1st, we have a requirement that we have to submit our calendar with our instructional hours to the Department of Public Instruction. That's a mandatory reporting requirement. And ultimately, in Power School helps the state monitor that all calendars meet that definition that Ms. Lopez is talking about, and that they meet the instructional hours requirement, because remember, we operate on hours and not days. So essentially, the state is monitoring that everyone is in compliance with the law, and that they ask that they're able to do so in advance. And I think that's kind of, as Mr. Craven was saying, we certainly would support a revised calendar as soon as it was statutorily permissible to do so. But because we have a responsibility to report that calendar and to put that forward, that a revised calendar could be pushed out to our parents and families if that were allowable. I know I've said this at the last couple of board meetings, but this has been a decades-long conversation at the state level, and the General Assembly has the power to change it. And right now, the law is the law, and we are required to submit a calendar within those guidelines.
so what I've done a lot of talking to a lot of different people in the last 3 weeks since we've met. The most exciting was to Mark Robinson. He makes everything exciting anyway. But he's willing to look at us and meet with Phil Berger about this. And talking with one of our legislative representatives, what I was told is that there is a group of old school senators who will not look at a calendar change. They have said to everybody else in the General Assembly, don't bring it to me. I'm not changing it. I don't care what it says. Don't even bring it to me. I am refusing to be bullied by a bunch of old school senators
Who are not
will
educators.
who are not educators, but who also will not do what's best for children. This calendar is not what's good for our children, and I will refuse to vote for it again. And I realize that puts parents in a predicament. And I think what you were alluding to before, Jay, was I said, worst case, we could post this calendar up, worst case scenario for parents. If it got down to it and we didn't get any movement before, school got out in June, before the beginning of June, that this would default and become the calendar, which I still will vote no for. I mean, I can't tell you I have 4 people that'll vote yes for it, but, and show parents the copy of the early college calendar. This is what we want for our district. This is what is best for our students, period. I'm only going to vote for what's best for our students, and this isn't it.
And I think that just because something has been done for 10 years, us rubber stamping something that we know is detrimental to our kids, I just don't think we're doing our job as a board if we do that.
Well said.
And I will, and kudos to Stacy for bringing something up to me last week. I didn't quite grasp, like I knew that our seniors that were graduating in June could not go off to a state university or to a community college anywhere, but it trickled over into our kids, our juniors and seniors cannot take classes like on Blue Ridge Community College campus with this calendar right here. So they miss out on a college class from January to May because of this calendar. I never looked, I don't know, I was sleeping or something. I don't know how I missed it. But I did, I mean, you're talking hundreds of more kids than what I believed was the 20% of our population that's affected that are seniors.
I mean, what you're talking about is dual enrollment.
Correct. Yeah, they cannot do it because they're still
Their
taking.
chance to get free college credits and
I
starting.
thought Blue Ridge was working with late starts. Are they not, Dr. Edney?
Okay, so you're talking dual enrollment, what, 300?
Yeah.
And you're talking early graduation, 200? So you're talking 500 for easy numbers? So 500 in our county, and let's say there are 100 counties in North Carolina, and there's at least one district,
Let's see if he's gonna do it.
there's at least one district in each county, but let's just say there's one district in each county. So 100 times 500, right? 50,000 students in North Carolina. Am I right, Mr. Blair? Mr. Chair? 50,000 people. I mean, I don't know. I know it's for the money, but it impacts us as well. I mean, we have Apple Festival. We have a large crowd that comes to North Carolina, Western North Carolina for the Apple Festival, for the fall. I mean, we understand for the money, but it can work both ways. We've talked to the camps. We've seen it work. It can work both ways. It just requires people sitting down and opening their eyes and opening their ears and listening and communicating. And it's not that hard. And so,
Jay, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with everything you're saying. I've worked, I've taught, I've principled. Is that a word? All right.
It is now.
Under both calendars, under both. And I do believe this one is the best for most of our children, okay? It relieves some barriers for some very important opportunities for our high schoolers. However, I do not, and I do feel like this is the best calendar. I mean, I do feel like starting later would be a better calendar. But I also have worked and taught and administered and in their shoes, and I know that they need a calendar to move forward to be in compliance. And I'm not willing, to keep putting this off so they can't do their work, and we can't do our accounting system, and we can't get things set up, ready to roll for next school year, just because we don't agree with a current law. If the law changes, I think we can put in our resolution or put in we'll just put into the proposal here that if the law changes, then we will make an amendment and our calendar will look like the early college calendar. I don't think we can hold up the work of our school system and wait. What do you want? You think they're going to do it next month? No, they're not. They've been doing this for 10 years. I understand. I'm with you, but I still understand the work of the school district, and we cannot live in a pipe dream thinking it's going to happen by next month. We have got to approve a calendar for operational purposes. That's all I'm saying.
And the legislators actually don't even meet until May, till short session.
So it's not going to be approved next
They're
month.
home right now, and
but the long session is still
Still
going.
yeah, technically, but they're not going back till May.
And
That's
this
fine.
bill is, the calendar bill is in the long session.
It's still in the long
So,
session.
listen, I think we we have to be in compliance, right? I am more than willing to put an amendment on this that if by June 30th, if something comes around, that gives our parents 6 weeks, which isn't a lot, that we would call an emergency meeting to change this calendar. I would call it in 2 days and bring everybody back, and we'll vote right then to knock it out. But she's right. We are not just hamstringing our We're hamstringing them.
But that's why Ms. Holt.
So what's the end
said-
game? So what do we? Where do we end? Where does it end?
I don't care. Throw me in jail. I mean, we have said and said and said. And Ms. Holt has said, you know, let's have 2 dates, and if nothing gets changed, you know what's going to happen. But if things do change, it's the 16th. But I mean, that's why we vote. That's why we live in America, in a democracy, freedom of choice. That's my. It will be my vote.
All right. So I'm going to make a motion. Where's that? You pull it up. I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the 2022-2023 traditional calendar for first reading as presented with this caveat. If there is any movement from the legislature prior to June 30th, that we will immediately convene to change the calendar to a more appropriate calendar for our school system. But for today, this is what I'm approving. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, let's voice vote it out. Voice vote it out. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes or no, Ms. Case?
No.
Yes or no, Ms. Holt?
No.
Yes or no, Mr. Egoff?
No, sir.
Yes or no, Ms. Caskey?
Sorry, Carl, no.
And I'm a yes.
Do I not get to vote?
Fail. Yes, Ms. Dr. Revis. You seconded, sorry. Yes or no, Dr. Revis?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Yeses lose it's 4-3.
So can we put that, I don't want to not get information out to parents, you know?
Y'all tell us what you want to do.
Can we put that out, like, this is what I think literally, we've got to have parents ringing the phone off of these guys so they cannot do anything but answer this dang calendar.
I think the problem is I haven't had one parent email me about this. I don't think parents
If they
don't know until it happens in August, right? And then you get to school and you're like, why am I starting so late? Why are my kids in school till June? Or if it snows, they're going to be there till June 15th. Like, you know, it's an out of sight, out of mind type of deal, right? We see it, we know it every day, but I don't think the general, you know, our 13,000 kids, their parents really get it. So my question to you what now? So what do we do?
Well, I think by April 1st, John and them are going to have to submit this calendar. But if there's any changes between then and June, then I think parents should have another choice, like you said, of the 2 calendars that will go to the other one if there's any change with the legislature, which I doubt, but I hope.
But wasn't that what the motion I just made?
No. I'm saying that we do this now because John doesn't have a choice. But we will have the other calendar and parents will have both calendars to find out what's going on, and that they'll hear us today hopefully saying that, no, we do not accept what the General Assembly is stuffing down our throats. So.
And what is that date that we need to, is the cutoff date for when we have to take this calendar?
Well, again, I want to clarify what I heard you saying, because I can't submit a calendar that the board hasn't approved.
Right.
This is not, I would be submitting something that was not true at that point. I have an obligation to report accurate information. So I would be not reporting and then putting the school system in a non-reporting situation. So that's the position that we are now in. As Dr. Revis is saying, logistically, I can submit a draft calendar.
Okay, but why can't you submit a calendar that says this is state approved but not board approved?
Because it has to be board approved by law.
Can we submit the,
Just go ahead and make it April 15th. Who cares then at that point? I mean, August 15th.
I'm in.
can we submit that one?
I don't think so.
Wait, you'll get
Go
4
ahead,
yeses for
submit
the
it.
early
I mean,
college
that's where we're
calendar.
at.
Well, what you'd be asking at that point is to approve or to consider a calendar that doesn't meet the law.
That's okay.
That's a different question than what we're talking about here. If the board wants to adopt a calendar that is out of compliance with the law, that is a different situation. And I think that's more of a legal direction question than it is what you'd be asking me to do.
But you would still need another vote here to approve a calendar that has a different start date, because right now you don't have a calendar at all.
Then
you do it. You
I mean-
make a motion to have a start date, you've already thought of it.
Yeah, I moved that the Henderson County Board of Public Education adopt the early college calendar as the traditional calendar for 22-23.
Second.
So we are
I'm sorry.
So we are willing to break the law. I
You
thought
know
we took
what?
an
I
oath of
drive
office.
56 and 55 mile per hour. Yes.
I think we took an oath of office that said that we would uphold the laws of our state, of our federal government.
did.
You know, you're just gonna, because you don't like it? I mean, we have another option, guys. Blair put another option on the table for us. What about that is not reasonable? I just don't understand. I'm struggling.
And I
It's not
understand.
that, I'm just tired of being bullied by senators who will not look at something that's best for children.
No, I agree with that.
I cannot.
In this
sit on this
case-
I
board.
understand that.
What
I get
was
that.
different about what you said than the motion that I made?
I didn't hear you say that we'd have two calendars.
I said with the caveat that if they came back before June 30th, I would call an emergency meeting. We would meet within 24 to 48 hours and change the calendar.
We don't take a stand. We've been doing this for how many years? When I was teaching, it is not fair to the kids or the teachers, because that staying in school and then coming back after Christmas, the teachers have to teach, review, and whatever.
It's
again.
horrible. I think I
And
agree.
It's just not fair. And how many years have we gone along with it and agreed with it and not put pressure on anybody? How many school systems do not have to start that late, John? Do you have any idea? Some of them are, I know, some of them are weather, but how many have bucked the system and did not have to do that?
I'm only aware of the weather waiver eligibility that relates to the school system. I know every school system has had this debate and this conversation as it relates to it. What I can speak to is the weather eligibility is a handful of school systems in the western part of the state and a handful of them in the eastern part of the state who are eligible because of the number of days that they miss. And the law actually allows them to start earlier. The law gives them permission. 2 years ago, a number of school systems in the state were all proposing, we were one of them, who proposed calendars that didn't meet the current definition, but we believe there was some flexibility. And as Ms. Lopez noted at that time, the General Assembly didn't change the law, right, to define that. I know that they represent all of nearly western North Carolina, and so there may be other school systems that are debating this same issue right now.
Believe that all of the school systems are debating this issue right now. The only information that I have is, I believe there are 2 systems in western North Carolina that have selected a different start date than the one required by the law.
Oh, really?
2.
I'm aware of 2.
And what school, what systems?
Well, so I'm not saying this is a
This is just something you read in the news, right?
of these systems, but if you were to go to their websites, I think you could see that Cleveland County and Avery County schools have a different start date. That's on their website. Now, I can't attest that
Right.
was, the board vote or anything of that nature.
I would think Avery County would be in.
They get a waiver.
They may have a waiver.
They generally are weather
Cleveland
eligible.
County, but no, I wouldn't imagine they're down the hill, so.
How many snow days are we short to get a waiver?
Sometimes it's been one.
It's minimal.
We had a period of time where we were just 1 day away, but it's about, you have to have missed 8 days in a 4-year period over 10 years, and we're not eligible right now.
Right. Many school systems are not. Buncombe County, for example, they did not qualify for a waiver, and so their start date is the 29th.
Are they fighting it?
They adopted a calendar last Thursday with the start date of the 29th. I do want to point out that you do have a motion. I don't know if on the, right, that has been seconded to have the start date the same as the early college start date. I just didn't want.
We're still doing, we're still
Right.
discussing that
I just
motion.
didn't want us to lose track of that motion.
We're not.
Okay.
So, as our legal counsel, what are the ramifications if, as an elected body, we vote to do something that is not permissible by our general statutes?
So it's not entirely clear what the remedy would be. I know the state has put out, DPI has put out to school systems a reminder that you are supposed to tell DPI and the state board by April 1. And I know that DPI has put out a reminder in their financial and business services newsletter that they are monitoring school system start dates. So they're looking for that information to come in. So, you know, there have been questions about whether or not it could impact school funding. There's nothing specific in the law that says that. I mean, it would, you know, potentially someone could file suit. Individual taxpayer or parent could file suit against the board and try to seek an injunction to stop the board from moving forward with the date on the basis that it is in violation of the law. So that would be something that you as a school system would have to defend if that were to occur.
How late was the General Assembly in adopting a budget?
2 years.
Because they had a date as well, I believe. And that,
Oh, yeah.
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 Took them 2
There
years.
she was going there
It
really
was the
quick.
third year that they finally.
Sorry.
All right. The motion on the floor is to start on, I believe it's August 15th.
I just like a clarification on that.
Yeah.
The revised early college calendar actually started them on the 11th, not
Right.
on the 15th. So the original draft of the early college calendar had them there. So I want to make sure.
Bring that up. Bring that.
Yeah, can we look at that?
Sure, he
should be-
doesn't have
Probably
that.
would have to access it off the
Scroll down.
website. Off the website. It's the 2022-2023 calendar, but that calendar has the early
Stuck a couple
college students starting a little bit earlier than I believe what this board would tend to recommend.
Would
for-
be the 15th.
Right, we'd be talking about the 15th.
Is that what you intended, Amy, or you want just early college? Because previously, when we had discussed this with other
No, the 15th.
senators,
That's right, that's
it
right.
was
The
the 15th.
second one was, yeah, no, yeah, the 15th, the first one that we looked at.
So the original,
that's it.
uh,
So-
the original early college calendar, not that one.
Not that one, but yeah.
This is the
starting
one you
on the
approved
15th.
at second reading, so I want to make sure that the motion is a start date of the 15th.
Correct.
Yes, because,
That's what we need to be able to get that semester completed, correct?
and that's what the camps have submitted, and I was in discussion with them, and they said, don't start any earlier than the 15th, because that gives us 2 sessions. So the money question is out of it. They could have 2 sessions if we started no earlier than the 15th. And it's a little small, but the 15th is what I think would work. And I think that's what Miss Holt.
Yeah. So,
So
I mean,
we
I
would need to-
understand what you're saying. Like, I get it. I understand what you're saying. But if 115 school districts keep just saying yes to the 29th, yeah, we're never going to make them make a change and make it right, make it what's best for our kids. Like, I get it. I
think
get it.
it's one of those things, you know, they've wrestled local control away from school boards for many, many moons. And I definitely think this is one of those things that makes them take it away even more, to be perfectly honest with you. I've had discussions with folks about it, and a lot of folks in Raleigh don't respect local school boards at all. Right?
May I offer just one thought? And again, I want to say this with the deepest respect for everybody involved, because we all want the same thing. But for us to direct our own system to not follow a law because we don't agree with it invites the same conversation within our own school system. It says the rules you don't like, you don't have to follow.
Amen.
The rules that we create, you don't have to comply with. The guidelines that you don't agree with because you believe in your heart that it's not the right thing to do, is we are teaching the wrong behavior. 100% we need this law to change. 100% we need it to change. And we need to
Never
continue.
will.
I don't believe we
Never
continue
will.
to say never.
It
I
never
don't
will,
believe that-
unless someone makes a stand.
Unless you vote him out.
What I don't agree with is a circumstance or a situation by which we knowingly say to choose to break the law is the way you get the law changed. Because that, I believe, teaches, and we are an education system, it teaches the wrong behavior. There are ways through our legislature and through our leaders in which laws get changed. In the same way that our democratic process says you elect people that value the things that you value and then represent the things that you believe to be represented. It is a long overdue change, and I absolutely respect the dialogue of the board. But we have a responsibility to lead a system that says when there are rules, we should recognize and respect the processes by which those rules exist. And I believe we put that integrity at jeopardy when we knowingly direct staff to break the law.
Thank you. Well said.
It's to their benefit. Back during the first year of COVID, they changed all that, right? When it was to their benefit.
Most certainly. And again, the General Assembly has that statutory authority. They granted us that ability once. I believe we should continue to advocate, as so many of us are doing, to say we believe that advocacy matters. That is the democratic process, to reach out to our legislative leaders and pressure the things that we believe to be important. That is our responsibility. But to say to them, we know you're elected to make laws, and we'll agree with them so long as we like them, puts us at a very, very difficult position. And educationally, I feel like that's a disservice to our students.
Democracy is a hell of a thing.
It is. But I think the most beautiful part about democracy is recognizing that you have to live with the decisions that are made within the system that makes them.
Absolutely. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. I'm assuming you want to amend that motion, correct? To better represent this calendar versus the current early college calendar? Or no?
Yes, you said to duplicate
The first one, yeah.
but
The one that started at the 15th.
We need to cancel that motion, right? Yeah. So we need to squash that motion, and then you're welcome to make another motion.
Like, can we just take what he said out? Like, can you back us up and we'll just delete what John said? Like what he just
But it's the truth. I mean, the truth hurts to hear sometimes, Amy. And
Choose which laws you're going to abide by.
But you know what?
You don't like?
Throughout America's history, there have been changes because somebody stood up and took a stand. You know, you look at slavery. I mean,
seriously, Doug.
I'm just saying, I'm just saying, you stand out and you make a difference.
I agree with that, but we have a democratic process, which John so eloquently outlined, in which to do that.
Then let's vote.
I personally and professionally cannot break the law. I'm not going to.
So, being that was that first motion that you just made, it's August 11th is the start date, is the motion that you just made.
No, the 15th.
So would you like to kill that motion?
Yeah.
Okay. So you are welcome to make a motion for the 15th. If not, I'm going to make a motion that we approve this calendar once again as presented by Dr. John Bryant and his staff, starting on August 29th, even though that we don't like it, with the caveat, Mrs. Case, that I will bring this board back within 24 hours if we have any movement whatsoever from the legislature to where we can change our calendar to earlier. I make a promise to each and every one of you, I will come back here on a moment's notice.
Second.
All right. Yes or no, Mr. Bridges?
Yes.
Yes or no, Mrs. Case?
I don't like it, but yes.
Yes or no, Mrs. Holt?
No.
Yes or no, Mr. Egoff?
No.
Yes or no, Mrs. Caskey?
Why did you have to say that?
It's the truth.
Yeah.
Yes or no, Dr. Evans?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. It passes 5-2. Thank you.
Can I have some commitment before we step away from
Yep.
this subject?
Yep.
Like, can we make weekly calls
Yep.
to, I
So
would like
this
to
is-
find out, because it's
this
more
is-
than just Phil Berger.
This is what I'm willing to do. There's one man in this town that I do believe has a lot more control over this calendar and is the person that actually kind of put this calendar into movement 10, 12 years ago. And his name is Mr. Tom Apodaca.
Oh.
Mr. Tom Apodaca is a very best friends of Mr. Berger. He is now a lobbyist in the state of North Carolina, and I am more than willing to make several phone calls. I would hope that you guys make some phone calls to him because he definitely has his ear. Now, he's probably going to be mad that I said that in public. But I will make that commitment to each and every one of you that I will put forth as much effort as I can onto him to get that done, and which I have done the past couple of years. It's just I haven't put forth full effort. I will put forth full effort.
I mean, I think like if we, just sit him down and show him. I mean, I think I mean, I get it. I get what the thought was. People were starting on, August 7th, August 21st. It was all over the place. So I know they needed to clean it up.
Yeah. The thought was it was less about that and more about money, from
Right.
my understanding. It's about money from the tourist segment out on the coast and money from the camp segment here in the mountains. And
it's
they
getting free labor from the kids because they haven't started
essentially
school.
that's what it was, but it's never made sense to me that our calendar is the only one that does that. You don't do that in college. You don't do that at community college. It never made any sense to anybody else, right? And so I promise you I will make an effort, all the effort that I can make. I don't feel like resolutions do anything. I think they're going to.
I know, but I think we needed to do it anyway.
We need to do that to put it in public, but call your parents. I would, this is what I would like. I would like, maybe we can add a link on our website. Let's make it easy for our parents to send letters to our senators, okay? So let's get a form letter that parents can just slap a date and their name on that says that they would like to follow the calendar, no earlier than August 15th or the Monday before, however that wording was 2 years ago when we had it. And then we can reach out to parents, we can email, and then we can say, hey, go on the website, grab that link right there and send it off. Can we make that
Especially
happen?
rising juniors and seniors. I think, I don't think a second grade parent really understands the
No,
scope
no.
of this, but a rising junior and senior whose kids cannot take these college classes because of that might be a little bit more actionable.
None of this really matters until you get to, really to high school anyways. That's when it really, the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, and I think once parents get there with their kids, it's too late. You know what I
Right.
mean? And then we're halfway through the senior year.
What we would be able to do, Mr. Craven, and kind of based on the board's discussion here, is we certainly could outline for parents who the legislative leaders are that they could advocate through and list the bullets in a more less resolutioned form, right? Rather than a draft letter that would be cut and paste, I think what we could do is share the information that says, after the board's discussion and continued deliberation, here are the concerns that we have with the current calendar law, and we encourage people to utilize this information as they reach out to their legislative leaders if they agree. And then that way, that information is in a way that people would be able to use.
Okay. And I'd even be willing to go a step further and do like an all email type blast on it to
That's what I
show
was
that
gonna
to show that we are serious about it. And so I would like to draft up some language from us to really show how serious we are about this, getting this done, and then we can send it out to our families.
We need more than just saying log on to our website. We like an all call, all email, whatever, because I don't know of any person that would disagree with
Nobody
this.
does disagree, yeah.
Does anybody disagree on the board here with this? The fact is, we're only in compliance because we're told to, right?
Yes, sir. What we can do is we can communicate that out to all of our platforms so that folks are aware of what those issues are.
And I think it's making sure that people understand it's also advantageous to all of our high schoolers, particularly high schoolers, to take those exams and be done with them before
Right.
Christmas break. Because when you're just talking about, students that are going to community college, you're talking less than 3% of your student population. So I think we're going to have to put some key points in there for them to understand.
Because none of the senators went to college and then took exams in January.
No.
None of them.
And I
So
think
they understand it. It's money is talking to them more than anything that we're doing here.
I think
So-
we also need to say that we've collaborated, you guys have collaborated with, the camp partners around our area.
Yeah, we've got the letter.
Well, and it needs to also say, because I think people in the beginning understood it, like we were going to start August 15th and still go to June 9th or whatever that date was. Like, no, we want to get out, like you're not losing any of your summer. We want to start earlier, but get out earlier as well.
And I think it should go to elementary too, or we're going to be sitting around here in 10, 15 more years with those second graders being seniors and nothing's going to have changed. So I really think it should go to elementary too and get them
Send
thinking
it
the
to
same
everybody.
way.
Okay, are we done?
Sorry, guys, I just.
All right, let's go on to something that's a
let's
little bit easier, hopefully. Summer program, Dr. Wendy Fry.
So excited to hear this.
See, if you would have just presented this and not Carl, I think
I wouldn't have said no.
duly noted. Push your mic on, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, our annual request about the summer testing program. So, as you know, all schools offering a summer program must have a written summer plan for the 21-22 school year that's been signed and approved by our local board, you all, and then submitted to our regional accountability coordinator by April 1 as well. Our summer instructional program's purpose, as you all know, is to provide additional academic instruction and second chance assessments on our EOGs and EOCs because, first of all, we believe that our summer programming helps and will influence their achievement, but also sometimes you just have a bad testing day, as we all have experienced. And then, as you know, we are actively planning another robust, hands-on educational experience this summer that we are so excited to tell you about. And it's actually the new and improved version. You will hear about some additional programs that we've received funding for from the Department of Public Instruction. Look forward to sharing those details in April. But for today, need your approval on this written testing plan.
Dr. Fry, I see it only includes grades 3 through 12. Are we also going to include in our summer program K-2 or?
Yes, ma'am. It will be a K-12 summer program as last year. This applies specifically to those tested
All right,
grades.
thank you.
Yes, but that's a great question.
I don't like these dates. No, I'm joking.
Oh, good grief.
John, can you
Mr.
please
Craven,
speak
that's
up?
Dr. Wendy Fry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Taylor sat down, so that was good.
All right, I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the 21-22 summer program plan.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, contract Bernie Sosha.
Good afternoon. Hopefully this one will be just as easy for you. You're aware that we have Identikid in about a dozen of our schools, which is the software that people use to check in for visitors. Mr. Massington has gone out and sought a grant this year. He applied and he received the $115,989, as you see on this document, to put Identikid into all of our school locations. So what we have for you now is the contract with Identikid from their proposal. If if you document there, it will include the computers, the software licensing for 15 months, so it will get us all the way to the 23-24 school year, all paid through this grant. And so this is for approval for you to approve that contract with Identikid. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to help you out.
What does it cost us after the grant dollars run out?
So the cost will be about $16,000 a year in today's current going rates annually that we would assume we would pick up at the district level. That is, in essence, almost twice what we are currently paying. We're already paying about $9,000 a year. The individual schools are currently paying, I should say. We're not paying for it. The individual schools have picked that up. This would now come under the umbrella of the district as a whole.
Where does that information go? So I go in, you snap my picture, and you put it on there. Where's that information stored?
That is a very good question. Mr. Messin, do you know where?
What do we do with that information?
Or a weekly basis or a monthly basis. But what it does is it gives us a real-time attendance of who's in the school. It effectively assists us in making sure that if a child is leaving school early, that they're going to the correct parent or guardian. If people visit the school, we know why they're there and the length of time that they have intended to be there. If they're for a lengthier period of time, we would get an alert of some sort to find them in our buildings and ask them if their business is still at hand or if they're ready to go.
So I have a question. So we already pay for this?
Some individual schools do.
We have it at select locations, and it was a visitor management tool that individual schools purchased previously themselves. We recognized its value to the entire school system when it comes to opportunities for consistent visitor management, and it allows us as well, because these are grant-funded dollars, and a real credit to Mr. Massington for receiving these dollars, that it would allow us to then remove that burden from individual schools and take on the ongoing renewals at the district level.
So what are we spending now? 9,000?
Yeah, as Mr. Socia said, about
what's going with the, what's going to happen with that 9,000?
the schools don't have to spend. The schools don't have to spend it.
Right.
So that's like their school, but they'll be able to use that on kids.
But specifically, Mr. Eagle, if I may, so some schools have paid for licensing, which is the annual recurring expense, for different periods of time. Some have bought it for just 1 year at a time. One school, in fact, bought it for 5 years forward. All that monies has been prorated and is being credited back to us. So everybody's going to start now at 0. We have a 15-month lease agreement for the software to get us to the 23-4 fiscal year, and it's from that point forward that, as a district program, we'll pay the annual licensing fee.
This is a part of a school safety initiative, correct? I mean,
Yes.
Okay. And I want to thank you for going out and getting that grant. And I've done that before, and not only is it securing the grant, but it's monitoring and managing and accounting for the grant. So I appreciate that. And the relief it's going to give financially to the schools. I mean, $1,000 is a huge amount of money for an elementary school.
Yep.
That's a cumulative number for the 12 schools, but still, it is a lot of money. And in full transparency, I got an email from Dr. Bryant that said, am I going to be signing off on a grant application this week? And my response was, gulp. Yes, sir. So then I went in the system, found the grant, and wrote it. So it's a credit to this gentleman for the little nudge of encouragement.
I think it's great.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody's saying up here, but I do want to follow up because we've had some issues on some other things within our school system. I would like to know where this information, when you take my picture and I'm punching in my name, where does it go? How long does it stay? Who sees it? Where is it at? Is it, are we, you know, does it pick up people on a registered sex offender list? I know I read an amendment, and it said that the people that are working for the company are not on the registered sex offender list. But does it link up to the registered sex offender list like immediately?
Most visitor management companies contract with third-party vendors who run those lists.
Okay, and is that an immediate thing?
That's
Like,
immediate.
it would pop up? Okay.
Is it by the name or by the face or both?
It's by the name.
By the name.
Facial recognition is not that sophisticated yet.
Not, well,
It might be, but not in, not in this context.
not in the
Sometimes
schools.
it is.
All right, thank you so much, but if you could find that information for me, that'd be greatly appreciated.
This is great.
All right, anybody like to make that motion?
Oh, yeah. I move we approve the grant application. Where is
Right
it?
there.
I move the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the attached contract with the specified vendor. I was just making it up as I was
Yeah,
going
it's
along.
like, right.
There it is.
It's right there. Is there a second, Ms. Case? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Next up, teacher recruitment signing bonuses, Mr. Scott Rhodes. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Taylor is trending on Twitter as a man standing at a podium for long periods of time for 2 months in a row.
With his jaw drop, like, what do I do now, John?
Yeah, fun fact for Mr. Taylor.
Text him, don't worry, I got this.
We'd like to, in an effort to recruit highly qualified, licensed, certified employees to work in Henderson County, we're proposing a $1,500 signing bonus to be available out of ESSER funds starting tomorrow through the beginning of the school year in an effort to recruit, again, licensed, certified employees who are being hired in full-time permanent positions. These bonuses will be paid out in 2 installments, one at the end of August, and the second part of that bonus will be paid at the end of January 2023. We will be putting those, if approved, on the job postings on our website. Each one of those different jobs will be posted. We'll have the signing bonus if they qualify as part of that job description. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
What's the to not exceed number?
I'm sorry?
What's the top of the line?
So we are looking at putting $175,000 in that ESSER budget. We normally hire somewhere between 80 and 100 employees. And so we went ahead and put 175 in the budget.
This is a one-time signing bonus for 1 year only.
Yes, sir.
So this kind of works in conjunction with our substitute bus, you know.
And if I could
Letter
just add,
training.
yes, sir, what I really appreciate about Mr. Rhodes' thoughts is, he's being very strategic about the recruitment efforts that are taking place from not just the standard recruitment, but what sets Henderson County Public Schools apart, what gets us the competitive advantage to get the top candidate first. And this is just one more element in that space. When we talk about workforce continuity and readiness, we are far better equipped when we hire a teacher in the hiring season in April or May to be ready to come in August than we are to be in those situations when we're hiring somebody in August. And so this just gives us an option as he's on the recruiting trail to be that competitive edge.
Do you know of any other counties in western North Carolina who are making this offer?
To my knowledge, I don't know of anyone else that will be offering signing bonuses other than maybe one school system in the far west.
Let's keep that quiet.
All right. Any other questions?
Are there any downsides to this? I mean, what's the downside to this?
I think the only downside, maybe do your current employees get upset that you're paying new people more money?
What about the teachers? What about the teachers that signed on last year?
Well, we just gave them a retention bonus that was paid out in February, but there could be people that missed the boat somewhere in there if they were like on FMLA and then they didn't get the retention. Now they're not getting the signing bonus. So there's always going to be one-offs.
Well, Mr. Craven, I want you to know that we took into account when we started having discussions about the amount. We had discussions about anywhere between $3,000, $1,000, and one of the key points that we discussed was making sure that we were respectful to our employees. We recognized that we gave a $2,000 signing bonus to our employees who have been with us through this year, who qualified. And we didn't want to put a number out there that would exceed that. But at the same time, we are doing everything we can to move the needle, to try to encourage people to come work in our school system. Folks, we've got the best school system in Western North Carolina, period. Stand behind that every day. But I'm getting ready to meet with someone tomorrow from Texas who's getting ready to move up here. She's a science teacher, has a wonderful resume. I'm going to be meeting with her over Zoom. It will give us a competitive edge if I can say to her, we're going to offer you a $1,500 signing bonus, because that will help the move from Texas to North Carolina. So if it comes down to one of our neighbors and we're offering $1,500, it will give us a competitive edge.
What about those people who were out all year on FMLA? Are they going to be considered in this?
Now, this is a total different discussion, Ms. Case. That goes far as the retention bonus, but this is just a signing bonus for all brand-new positions opening up between now and the beginning of the school year.
Okay. And Scott, I got a question that goes back, I think, a while back. The employees who did not get that state bonus that we talked about last time, the assistant principals, bus drivers, assistants, what have y'all done about that?
I will defer that to our wonderful superintendent and our chief financial officer.
Yes, ma'am. We were prepared to provide you some updated information in superintendent's reports where we'll go through that, because you'd asked us to follow up with you about those folks.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, all I can say is this. A wise former superintendent of mine said, put your money into people. It's not stuff, it's not things, it's into people. And it's sad that we are in the state that we're in, having to recruit and attract and hire, use signing bonuses to attract people. We used to not have to do that, but our times are different. So I think we've got to put our money to get the best people we can in our classrooms.
I agree, and with neighboring counties having higher supplements, we need to pull them in with something.
Yes.
So.
And not to put anyone on the spot, but one of the finest HR directors in Western North Carolina was sitting right here to my right. And I have no doubt that at some point, if she would be able to offer $1,500, that would have been a welcome opportunity. You don't have to say anything. Your smile says it all. Thank you for the support, Cynthia Lopez.
I do like the fact that you split it up.
Yeah, I do too.
It's a little carrot.
Yes.
Thank you.
So anybody like to make a motion?
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the $1,500 signing bonus for licensed certified employees hired in a full-time permanent position between March 8th, 2022 and the start of the 2022-2023 school year from available ESSER funds.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thanks, sir.
Thank you for your support.
How's the word of this getting out? Scott, how's the word of this getting out?
So I'll be working with Molly. We'll make sure that we get this information out. We are in the middle of a huge recruiting effort right now. We are going to be bringing some of that back to you for our April board meeting. I just want to again just give huge kudos to Molly. She has just been working with Rhodes Branding. We've got some really exciting things as we get ready to go on the recruiting trail, and we're gonna get some really good teachers coming to Henderson County. But we will get that information out immediately.
And that's Rhodes Branding, no affiliation with Scott.
Well, that's
as a professional firm, no conflict of interest there. The next item on the agenda, Mr. Craven and members of the board, is something that actually will feel maybe a little bit familiar. Last year, this board allocated a series of dollars to our individual schools to help reimburse schools for end-of-year activity expenses. Most notably, you think about costs associated with graduations, honor and award programs, special recognitions, and otherwise. And the reason that we did it last year was because we had some pretty tight restrictions on fundraising activities. Similar restrictions have been in place throughout this entire school year, and those were welcome dollars, and again, they didn't then burden the individual school with those necessary expenses. And so while the numbers are reduced this year, just bringing you this request asking that the board support recommended allocations for end-of-year activity reimbursements to our high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools. And you can see the designated amounts there, $5,000, $2,000, and $1,250. That's just shy of $50,000 total. And if this were to be approved, the board would be allocating from our local fund balance, because these would be dollars that were not initially budgeted. And last year, the board will remember, the county commissioners designated $400,000 for COVID-related expenses. Those are not in this current year budget. So you'd be approving $50,000. And these are welcome dollars, and they are put to very good use. Glad to answer any questions.
So Dr. Bryan and I had a spirited discussion on this, this request, and after thinking about it, I do think that this is a very level-headed request and needed request, being how the school year has gone so far, right? And so most of these are going to be for ice cream parties for the elementary school kids or whatever. I'm willing to go with it for this year, but I don't want to continue doing this year over year.
And as we expect fundraising to be able to return to what parents and families in our community would call normalized, it would be an unnecessary expense moving forward. But I'd be glad if the board supports this to make sure that our administrators know that this should not be a recurring expectation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, seeing it last year at the graduation, my daughter's graduation even, there were so many nice things that were done for the kids that you know that the dollars would not have been there had we not provided that. And it made it such a special experience considering what all of our kids have been through, you know, the last 2+ years. So.
No, I agree. I think it was good dollars well spent. I just don't want to continue it at
Right.
50 grand every year.
And this year's not been normal.
No, not even close.
So the 5 high schools, what does that mean? Does that mean 2,500 to each, or?
No, it means 5,000 each.
Right,
The split
I
would
was
be
meaning-
IHS.
yeah,
So the Career
2,500
Academy,
for
right, they
each.
have it 2,500
Okay.
for each.
Sorry, I didn't say that right, but that's what I was thinking. Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Oh.
Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll do it. I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the allocation for end-of-year activity reimbursements as presented.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Please note that Dr. Evers abstained. All right, next up, Glenn C. Marlowe safety signals, Mr. Carl Taylor. Oh, boy.
Don't you want to bring Dr. Fry with you?
Good afternoon again. At this time now, I am presenting to you an option to purchase safety lights at Glenn C. Marlowe Elementary School. And so this purchase would be through the North Carolina Department of Transportation. They provided us with a reimbursable agreement of $18,070.37 to purchase and install these 2 school flashers at Glen Marlowe. And so what those flashers look like, they'd be on each side of the entrance area to that school. It's one pole that has 2 flashing lights, one up at the top, one at the bottom, and then in between is a school sign and a speed limit sign, in order to try and grab the attention of those drivers as they are passing through that area, especially when we're talking about morning drop-off and afternoon pickup times. With this reimbursable agreement, Henderson County Public Schools would send DOT a check for the total cost. If there is money left over in that project, then they reimburse us that amount. And if the cost exceeds the amount that they've given us, then we would be billed for that remaining amount.
It's the most ridiculous way to, like, name something a reimbursable agreement, because they're not really giving you any money back. They're giving you what you overspent.
It's called an estimate. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's the most.
It's there to make us feel a little bit better.
Yeah, I guess.
Carl, why aren't they paying for this?
My understanding is that when it comes to us putting a school into a location, then we assume the responsibility for traffic concerns that we may encounter.
But
And
it's
so,
a public road, it's a DOT road, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Of it?
But our school is creating the condition.
Yes, ma'am. So that's actually consistent with all of our schools. This was a real lesson to me the first time that I explored asking about installing a stoplight at an intersection near a school. And they're like, you can install a stoplight, but if you do, you have to pay for the installation of the stoplight and the costs associated with it. So DOT, we expressed a concern as it relates to Glen Marlowe Elementary School. This board has received a number of parent inquiries related to that. I can say from personal experience, having been the principal there, the concerns with Butler Bridge Road and creating a safer condition is an opportunity there. And DOT certainly supports that, but they don't support it with a check. They say, we will contract the work, we will make sure that it meets Department of Transportation standards, and
What about, so I've been emailing back and forth with a few parents for a couple of months now. What about having the SRO out there and possibly getting another sheriff's deputy as well? Because this last week, there were a line of cars waiting and a semi, I mean, hello, you're not a small motorcycle, decided it was going to go around everybody into oncoming traffic and pass everybody. And they hit another parent in a car, a parent and a kid in a car. And, you know, at all the, like the city school district, or schools, we have people out there, you know, I don't know, just maybe having like the SRO and another sheriff or a, you know, crossing guard, something.
Well, I have directed traffic personally myself at West Henderson High School when I was principal there, just in the coming up the hill into the parking lot. That in itself is very dangerous. I don't know that we would want to put a body out there to direct traffic on that.
We've got 4 of them right in the middle of our city schools right here. We've got one at Breeze Drive, or at Hendersonville Elementary in the middle school. Then we've got one at the top of the middle school. We've got one at Hendersonville High School, and then one crossing over to Breeze Drysdale.
So the city of Hendersonville explicitly employs those individuals to do that.
Right, sure.
As it relates to a school resource officer, and I might be stepping out of turn, but Lieutenant Blankenship will correct me. We have historically not wanted to use a school resource officer as traffic patrol because of their safety responsibilities and their ability to respond to an issue, whether it's at the start of the school day or in a school building or otherwise. To do that would take them away, and it would bind them to a responsibility that they may not be able to keep every single day.
Right.
The sheriff's office has assisted us, and at Glen Marlow and other schools, with the volunteer deputies at the start of school years for a brief period of time, but also cannot staff that on a daily, everyday basis. I think we would likely benefit from people who are explicitly trained in traffic control at every school location because of the issues that those creates. But our current staffing, law enforcement partnerships and otherwise, wouldn't really allow for us to do that. So I think we would have to explore some more long-term solution in those ways. And this is a step forward. This is not a perfect scenario. I can acknowledge when we think about Butler Bridge Road and Glen Marlow and where the entrance is, it's a very complicated space. And most individuals don't want to wait for the traffic, and they do exactly what that semi did. They try to go around where it's all blocked it. And so traffic improvements like on 191 and otherwise have helped us to address those kind of things. But we have historically asked that our SROs don't become traffic police.
I didn't think about that.
That they're responsible.
So are you talking about the widening of 191?
Yes, ma'am.
We're forever away from that happening.
How long until this gets installed if we approve it?
I don't believe she gave us an estimated installation date.
It's an NCDOT installation date?
But
Dr. Fry, did you check on that at all?
Because it seems like it's an issue. We've had multiple parents emailing us, and that parent that got hit just the other day. I mean, it's clearly issues with the design of the school being too close to the road and too many people. We think that more people are going to ride the bus, but everybody's, I mean, a lot of kids do ride the bus, but a lot of parents bring their kids to school. So what can we do for this school year to help out the school system?
One wants to stand out there.
But I do appreciate these parents that write us and tell us this stuff, because there's a lot of places we wouldn't know that's going on. You happen to have been principal over there, but there's a lot of places, so we want safety for our kids.
correct.
I think most schools are a disaster from 7:30 to 8 and from 2:30 to 3, all of them.
Yeah, this is not the only school that has challenges when we talk about morning and afternoon traffic. And so that's something that Mr. Maskick and I have had several conversations about. He has visited several schools to provide some suggestions that are within our control to make it better. But it's something that we know we can continue to look at and continue to explore ideas on.
So we don't know when it's going to get put in, and we don't really have any other options for the rest of the school year. Well,
Did you get the email that we got talking about Ms. Holt, in regard to the tractor trailer. Have you responded to that lady, or did you happen to get that email?
I did not receive the email Ms. Caskey forwarded it to me over the weekend. So that was
I did respond to her and told her we would be talking about this today,
Good.
but we don't have an answer today.
Can we, I mean, is there a police car with flashes?
That'd be good. I mean, every
I mean,
SRO
everything.
brings their
You know,
vehicle.
I guess we just really don't know what the city of Hendersonville does for us until a time like now. I mean, because they have a Hendersonville police officer sitting on 64.
Yeah.
They have a
I forgot
crossing
about that
guard.
one, too.
Yeah, I mean, both times of the day. I mean,
So
they
can we
do a
ask
lot.
our SROs to maybe bring that car towards, maybe more towards the Butler Bridge there to throw some flashers on or something to try to get people's attention? Is that a possibility? Your conversation you're open to having? Say that again? Yeah, there's no, I mean, I pull it right in the grass. I mean, you pull it right in the grass right there.
Put it somewhere. We don't want the officers to endanger lives, but just something to.
We've gotten, I think, 3 or 4 emails from several parents, and it's every week of a new situation. So I feel like with the way that DOT typically works, this is, who knows how long this is going to take. It could take a month or it could take a year.
I think we need to have our administration look at that situation and then report back to either Mr. Taylor or Dr. Bryant and go with recommendations maybe to the sheriff's department.
We should probably approve this now, and then you guys figure out some things to hopefully help us through the end of the year.
Do we have any other schools that we need to do this at that you know of? I mean, because
Ellendale?
I don't want to, because we haven't had parents complain, and I don't want to not do it. I mean, we need to strategically look at those schools and then start moving a budget towards that.
We'll give you kind of a report on each of the individual schools. All of them have various traffic issues. What
Right.
makes Butler Bridge unique in the same way that when you think about Apple Valley and North, Apple Valley and North have very similar problems with people wanting to pass in blind curves. You know, like you can't see the traffic. And Glen Marlowe has that same condition. We block traffic everywhere. You know, that is a start of school day thing and an end of school day thing. But the unique nature of the generalized safety concerns, but we'll provide the board some updates on conditions that exist across.
This one's going to be especially important when they build 400 new houses up the road. So let's go ahead and get this approved, but I think we need to be more in depth on.
Like getting that road widened or something, working towards that.
I think they are talking about widening the road, but that would definitely not be us. That would be D.R. Horton when they're building everything out there and all that jazz. But I'll move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the purchase of the Glen C. Marlowe safety lights.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
But can we talk about at the next meeting?
Yeah, what I'd like to have you have for our April 13th meeting, for our budget meeting, let's start talking about safety conditions at our schools. Let's get with Mr. Massington. Let's see if there's anything else that we need to work on for the next school year.
Yes, sir.
You know, you look at Sugarloaf, I know they have
Yeah.
those flashing lights, but if
They
some of
do.
them don't,
Thank you, sir.
I don't get to go.
Oh, you're still here.
he's in for the ride.
Sweet. All right, capital outlay. Let's get going on this one.
So next, I'm going to give you an update on the capital outlay budget that was approved last spring, just so that you understand where that money has been spent, and then also be able to answer any questions maybe that you have about some of the projects that have not started yet. And so first of all, this is just a quick overview of the projects or the items that were approved last spring, what the anticipated cost was at that time, what money has been spent out of each of those line items, and then really whether or not that line item is completed at this time or continues to be in progress. So working through these, highlighting a group of them first, quickly run through them. The first item is the fleet management contracts. That's the lease program with Enterprise. that last spring we approved a line item of $30,000 for that because, again, the vehicles were in transit in some cases and continue to be in others. We still are 3 vehicles shy of having the entire fleet, 2 work vehicles for maintenance, 2 work trucks that are being currently built, and then the third is a passenger van that we're waiting for the new additions to become available on that, and that will complete that fleet. Next item that I've highlighted here, the classroom furniture replacement. You all approved $100,000 for that line. And to kind of give you an idea of where that money has been spent, because you can see over $98,000 has been spent at this point in time. That money was divided up at this time between 15 of our schools, 7 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, and 4 high schools. Initially, what was allotted was an amount to replace an entire classroom furniture based on current numbers of what a student desk at the elementary school level or the middle or high school level would look like. So that kind of gave us a baseline that was distributed to those schools. Some other needs have come up throughout this year that with that budget, we've been able to approve some additional needs beyond what was given out at that time.
Can I ask some questions before you keep skipping down?
I'm going to go, if it's about the ones that aren't highlighted, everything.
You're going to go over them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, these
Okay,
were the
go
ones that
ahead.
I knew I could hit real quick, and then some of the other ones will come back to a
Okay.
little bit more explanation. Working through real quick, custodial, the auto scrubbers, mowers, you can see there that almost that entire $30,000 has been spent at this point in time. Activity bus replacement is complete. That activity bus that we purchased came in over that $95,000 amount at $98,000, almost $99,000. The auditorium seating, that's one of our capital improvement projects at Apple Valley and at North Henderson. Again, those came in under budget, which allowed us to go ahead and add our boardroom in for what was approved for those 2 projects as a total. The sound and lighting at East Henderson and West Henderson, those are ones that we're getting ready to put out for bid, and so we'll see where that takes us. So that's why you see in progress on each of those lines with an anticipated amount still at what we budgeted. The musical instrument replacement that you approved as well at $90,000 out of that line item. Over $80,000 has been spent at this point in time. And so that's a quick rundown of just those projects. Going back and highlighting some of the other ones, East Henderson and West Henderson, we approved, or what was approved was $25,000 for that lease. You can see there actually what was paid out was $44,000. What was approved in the spring was a number of $25,000 based on that being a 6-year lease. That is actually a 3-year lease. And so what was paid out this year, that $44,000 is year 2 of the lease for those 2 fields. And so next year's budget will be the final year of the lease for those lights at those 2 ball fields.
At $44,343 apiece, right?
Yes, sir.
That we allocated 25.
Yes, sir.
So
The thought was it was $25,000 for 6 years, as opposed to.
We're actually saving a little bit of money on interest.
Yeah. So instead of it being year 2 of 6, it's actually year 2 of 3.
where did we get the extra money? Where did we have to take away from?
You know what, fortunately, we didn't have to take anything away because, again, those auditorium seats came in so far under budget that there was enough of a cushion still left from those 2 projects to offset the spending extra on those lights.
Okay.
Undesignated, you've got 90 left.
Yes, sir, and I'll come back to that one as well. I'm jumping around, just keeping us on our toes tonight.
I didn't think that was in there.
Next one, highlighting athletic facility improvements. Again, what was approved was $125,000. At this time, $14,000 of that has been spent. But as I've mentioned at previous board meeting, we are in the process of looking at some ADA improvements at East Henderson and possibly West Henderson. Those bids have been opened, and now we're waiting on a contract to be able to present to you at the April board meeting. But what's left there would be consumed in doing that work. All right, going up to undesignated, what was in this pot of money was $250,000 when we began this fiscal year. At this point, $160,000 has been spent. $125,000 of that was for a chiller at Etowah Elementary School. $30,000 was for a boiler replacement at East Henderson High School in their G building. And then $5,000 was for the deductible for Dana awning when part of it collapsed as a result of snow. And so that's where that $160,000 has been expended at this point in time. So we still have $90,000 available in that line item.
I thought
you
that
call-
was like at central office.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question. I just want to remind the board of that feature, which is really important. You see central office site just because those dollars are housed here, not because they're being spent here. The others are where they are being spent. But the other part that I want to touch on, because this board had the foresight to approve that category, in years past, we've never had an undesignated line item. We've not had the ability to deal with the unforeseen capital emergency. And this board had the ability when the Etowah chiller failed and we had to replace that entire system so that we could add air conditioning out there. We had an undesignated, or what we call the strategic capital line, that allowed us to be able to come to you and say, we need you to approve this work because it needs to be done. And so that's just been a critical part of our flexibility to deal with the issues that you don't know, like when snow causes an awning to collapse at a school. Those are not things that you can predict in a capital outlay budget. So appreciate the opportunity to talk about that one.
Are you going to bring that to us again this year? Are we going to keep doing that?
Yes, ma'am, most certainly.
And then the final two that are highlighted here are the baseball and softball field lights at North Henderson. What was put in there as anticipated cost to have those lights installed was $30,000 and $25,000 each. We've received those quotes from Musco Lighting. And so for the North Henderson baseball lights, the base price just to get it done is $405,000. So definitely more than what was anticipated as a cost for those lights. So some options to kind of consider. For us to lease those lights, in talking with Mr. Sosha, we can do a 3-year lease that has to be $250,000 or less without it going through LGC. Anything outside of those parameters would have to receive LGC approval. And so kind of thinking of that $250,000 mark in mind, that would require $155,000 as a down payment so that the lease is based on that $250,000. You can see there what the payments would be for a 36-month lease, and then you can see up from there for a 5 or a 7-year lease.
Okay, so let me just get this straight.
That's just one. Well, let's go,
Just
go
one.
to
You want me to go
softball.
ahead and go to the second one?
Yeah, there's two
Oh,
of
that's
them.
not both of them
That's
together?
not both.
Oh.
Oh.
So then we look here at just the softball field lights. The base price is $270,000, which is comparable to what it was for East and West combined when that work was done just a few years ago. So that's how much prices have jumped just in those 2 to 3 year, that 2-year window.
700.
Other vendors that can give us bids on this, or are we?
Musco is the one that I know is state approved. Whether or not, looking elsewhere for other quotes.
GE's just down the street.
Explore.
I mean, I know costs have gone up, but that's
Ridiculous.
astronomical. That's not even, no.
That's
Done
not
this 3
doable.
years ago when it came up, it would have been the same price as East and West.
You're correct. You are correct.
So these prices are crazy. But as far as equity goes, North does deserve softball and baseball lights. We've been talking about it for a long time. So how do we do it? How do we get it done? So some math that I've put together, because I've been looking at this thing for a while. We've got $55,000 that we have not spent in this year's budget. That goes towards these lights. In 22-23, presumably, we've got $55,000. That was a marker there, again, to continue that lease for these lights, which is $110,000. We've got $90,000 in undesignated funds, which puts you at $200,000.
It's 9.
Well, what I was thinking is you do the softball field lights now, you pay for them. Pay for them up front. And then when we're done with the other lights at East and at West in 24, is that right? So we pay for them we pay for them next year. And then July 1, 2023 is when the new budget would be there. we're gonna have a hole in our budget from where we're paying for East Lights and West Lights currently, which right now we're paying about $90,000. It's the only way, in my opinion, that you get this thing done. You pay for this one up front, and then in a year and some change, you come back and you look at your baseball lights.
They don't have lights at all?
0. But we also have schools that don't have baseball fields and softball fields, so it's all relative, right?
True.
So I just cannot go putting us on the that is $700,000 is a crazy amount of money for some softball and baseball. I wouldn't mind either finding some other vendors.
I think we've got to. I mean,
I think maybe they've got this market captured.
yeah.
And they're the approved vendors through North Carolina. Well, big whoop. I mean, South Carolina's right down the street. Who did Dorman's Lights? Who did, it might have been Musgrove.
This is crazy money.
I'll say this. Miss Holt and I we toured Hendersonville High School. And obviously, it was brand new school. They're doing the field now. And one question that we asked was, if you remember, was about the field, about the
Track.
about the track. The whole thing's getting, and, of course, again, I'm probably not the smartest guy. And I said, tell me what's going on again. And he said, well, we're just putting the track back like we were. And so we said, well, then I guess you can't hold regionals here. Or state, because we're redoing it, but again, it was going to cost more than, than we allowed. And Mr. Wilkins' response was, no big deal. I mean, it's just something that, we'll just have to go to another facility. And I just want to be just careful that, I'm just so careful with spending money. I just don't want to, and just like Mr. Craven said, we need to find another way. I mean, I'm all about equity. I'm all about fairness. I'm all about, we need to make a point that we're going to address these issues. But we can't put ourselves in a bind to not be able to do our job that we're supposed to do. And if we, I'm just scared of, promising more than we're able to complete.
I think the only thing that we have, since we haven't spent the money this year, we've got the money next year, we've got 90 left and undesignated that we've already had appropriated. So that's $200,000 of is 270, Bernie, is that the number for the cash price? Do you remember?
Yes, it is.
That's the cash price.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And that is good until?
April 1st.
Good until April 1st.
Yes, sir.
But then you're going to get us into a Title IX issue.
Well, that's why you go with girls first.
But that's what I mean. I mean, the boys can use Title IX.
Can they? Yeah.
Why not? Why not, right? We did it for one and not the other.
Well,
there's
it's a Title IX issue if you don't have an intent to do the other. So if the board said, we're going to do softball and we're never going to do the other, but so long as you have a plan, Title IX also understands you may not have $1 million to spend on lighting systems all at one time. So it is about just mapping out what you do next.
The only other thing I have is you don't do it. I mean, because it's $700,000, right, for some lights.
Can we hold off until we can see if we can get more bids?
It's going to double even more next year and the next year and the next year.
I'm not talking
It's
forever. I'm
not.
talking about, whatever the bid process is. I mean, this has gone up. We put in the budget 25,000, and it's coming in at 270. I mean,
We couldn't even lease it for 7 years at
No.
that price.
No, that's,
I feel like they're selling
something's wrong.
used cars. And
Wait.
the
And I
prices
know-
Wait. What?
I'm talking about inflation, Jay.
Okay.
And I mean, everything is up, right? That's what I'm saying, is that every
Everything's up.
building, everything is way up. You're looking at $450 a square foot to build a nice house right now. It's gonna come back down. I would hate to spend this money next year and then in 4 years, it's back down to reasonable where it was.
This has gone up within a year, I guess, because we built this budget last spring.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, everything
I
has
think
gone
they,
up.
I think that this company may be so busy that they just came in and said, you know what, we're so busy. If you guys want to do it, knock your socks off. Here's the price.
I think we got to shop around a little bit.
Second.
Now, I would like to ask this board to consider keeping that undesignated. And then the 55 that we've got from this year and the 55 from next year, keep that allocated towards these facilities. That's $200K that you've got that you can allocate.
Right.
But I know we can find something cheaper.
And I appreciate that because I think it's really important that if the capital dollars go unspent, that they are restricted for this project specifically.
I would absolutely.
So that they don't get reallocated to something else.
And they know that we're working on it.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So if
You
we're
okay for now, Ms. Case?
We're going to go out to bid.
So we can try to find, because this is ridiculous. The pricing is, it's crazy. So I think that's the only way that we can run that one.
But if we don't get any better pricing, we're gonna get softball this year. Are you saying that because your money you figured there?
I will, that's $200,000 that we have in cash. That means we need to pull 70 or so out of fund balance. I think we can find a way to potentially cover that. And then we have to look at what baseball does after we pay off our other lights.
And if the board goes through this deliberative process, it's possible as we get more clarification, there's been some state money that's been designated for repairs and renovations. It wouldn't be applicable to the lighting systems, but it might offset some of the other capital dollars that would give you that flexibility. So we don't have all the answers on that funding yet, but we do know that we're receiving an allocation, and we're receiving allocations that have to be spent for athletic repair and renovations, and that may give us a little more flexibility.
Yeah, because I definitely don't want North to be, you know, the only, I mean, Hendersonville doesn't even have fields or anything now, but, you know, the only school that doesn't have lights when we've done them at the other two. But it's just, to bite that off right, it's just crazy money.
Starting July 1, redesignate all of those funds into a restricted category for $200K for lights.
Yeah.
So that when we go back, it's not, oh, there's $200K you didn't spend. We're not going to give it to you. So that's designated funds for those schools, for those lights.
Now, how does it work if we get bids, you know, because this company here is the state approved?
Man, they're hustling us is what they're doing.
Well, I know. So how does it work?
Essentially, we'd have to put a bid package together and put it back out on the street, so
Okay.
to speak. And just see who are the
Put it
responsive
on the-
bidders, and then bring back information to the board.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. It's crazy.
I mean, we may not get it any cheaper, but at least we've tried.
Right.
We've thrown it out there.
Sweet.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you. All right, let's get into some superintendent reports. ESSER funding, Dr. John Bryant. Yes, sir.
The ESSER slides that are going to be brought up here for you are really just, again, a key update as requested by the board. We had shared with you in our previous meeting a look at that information. I won't re-review the first series of slides about eligible categories and how those funds have to be used. Glad to answer questions if there are any specifically. But what I want to draw the board's attention to is how the money is being allocated, and then, of course, what those expenses are to date. And as you take a look at this graphic for a second, the one that you see on the board right now, it's a chance to see, okay, what did we budget for summer learning? What have the expenses been to this point? So we budgeted $2.75 million for summer learning. After all the receipts have been run, if you will, it cost us $2.57, excuse me, I was flipping those numbers, $2.57 million. So roughly $200,000 or so less than we had originally budgeted. The retention bonus estimated at $4 million. We paid that out in February, remaining all eligible employee groups to receive that, just shy of that $4 million mark. Through February payroll, bus driver recruitment bonus, we talked about, so how much is this going to cost us? We spent about $21,000 in the bus driver recruitment bonus to have those staff. About $18,000 has been spent in the substitute recruitment bonus, and just shy of $3,000 in the substitutes for letters training. Remember, that letters training number is over the period of several years, so we're talking about PD that's going on for some time. When you look at the ESSER 3 category, of course, summer learning 2022 has not yet occurred, but it's a reduced number cost-wise. The TA cost to support quarantine students, about $250,000. Arts education initiatives, we've started to expend some of those dollars, the $10,000 mark you see there, using extra employment to pay people to cover classes. And you heard Mr. Rhodes talk about how our sub rates are increasing, our coverage rates are increasing, but we spent about $16,000 there. And while we budgeted money for those additional social work positions that we brought in, I want to draw your attention to the two asterisks, because one of the real strengths of our finance department, specifically Mr. Sosha and our budget analyst, Kelda Livingston, is it's all about making sure we spend the money that expires first. So we work backwards. You know, some of these dollars, ESSER 3 as an example, is available to us until September of 2024. That's the longest dollar amount. But this GEAR money, when we think about the governor's emergency relief dollars, some of those expire and they were an eligible use for that very thing. So we're expending those categories, those designated categories, and then we will start to use the ESSER 3 dollars when that runs out. So again, drawing your attention to future allocations, you approved one of those tonight, staff signing bonuses, continued conversations around technology upgrades, classroom instructional technology, moving through this work. But I'll be glad to answer any questions the boards might have about either of these slides.
Only question I have, the TAs to support quarantine students, is that necessary anymore?
Not right now. Now, we still know that we have students that have experienced quarantine and have gaps in their time, so we're providing direct and continuous support to students throughout the rest of this year. We hope that that's a funding that isn't necessary after June of this year. We hope maybe we don't have to use the word quarantine ever again.
Yeah, that'd be nice. And so what I would request from you folks is by the end of this fiscal year, I want to know what we spent.
Sure.
To the dollar, and see what categories we're at.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it'd be
Absolutely.
nice to be able to do something we didn't think that we could do, like, for instance, because of that quarantine.
Well, Mrs. Case, you had mentioned some bonuses to some other employees.
I'm sorry, what?
You had mentioned earlier about, you wanted to talk about bonuses for some other categories of employees.
Yes, ma'am, and we're prepared to kind of go over that in these.
Is it later?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
I've kept it separate for this because those are not ESSER eligible expenses.
Okay.
Remember, we talked about that,
It's local
where
kind of expense.
the state designated all those series of bonuses, and this federal money is separate from that. And so we'll talk about that. That could be a local decision that this board makes. But we will continue to keep you posted. We'll continue to give you running tallies.
Do we have projections? This is year-to-date numbers?
So the projections are based on the budget amount numbers that say, okay, if we are utilizing this through the remainder of a fiscal year, or as I was mentioning, some of these extend over several fiscal years, that you would be looking at that budget number to be the projection. But as an example, as our substitute teachers stabilize, the workforce stabilizes, that may be a bonus that's unnecessary as we move back into, we've hired the people, our fill rates are great, and that the bonuses are not necessary moving forward. Or it's the bonuses that are allowing the continuation of those fill rates, and the board may choose to continue on moving forward.
So you're saying that all of those numbers, as far as year-to-date expenditures, are projected to fill the budgeted amount?
No, sir. No, sir. When Mr. Craven, he asked about blank checks, is this board writing blank checks? And we said, we most certainly are not. They have fixed numbers associated with them. For example, when you approved summer learning in 2021, we said, how much is this going to cost us? $2.75 million, and we budgeted and staffed accordingly. But the bonus ones, like bus driver recruitment, we didn't have a really good way of projecting what that would be, but we had to put a cap on it. We said, you know what? This fiscal year, it will not cost you more than $265,000 through June of this year. And we will monitor the monthly expenses that hit payroll each time. And so at $20,000 a month over the next 4 months, we may not even get close to that number.
I just wanted a not to exceed number.
Right.
So a projection for the bus driver recruitment bonus is what?
The 265.
It'd be awesome if we could get to 265 in the next, 3 months to hire.
But it looks like we're not going to need to. It looks like what we're spending is far less than that. So maybe at the end of June, we say to you, well, we only needed $100,000. And we only spend the money that we need. And although we budgeted.
That's my only point. I would like to see what we're projected to spend. Because you showed me 20,000. I don't know.
The projection's the third column, 265. Column 3.
That's the do not exceed
budgeted.
we hired 1,000 bus drivers or however many it was that you figured on, at that number. That was the do not exceed. We've spent that much so far, and more likely than not, by the time we get to June, it's going to be $150,000 number.
Some of them are hard to project. As an example, again, a retention bonus is easy. We know how many employees we have. We know how many of them are full-time. We know how many of them are part-time. When we had to estimate that number, we estimated it at $4 million. When we actually paid it out, it was 3.9.
Let me tell you why I wanted that number in particular. Is because you come into this meeting, you're like, oh, I've only spent $20,000 on bus driver recruitment. You're like, oh, that's not a big deal. And then next month it's $160,000. You're like, whoa, what happened, right? And so I like to have, like, if you have something that we need to accomplish, great, let's accomplish it. But how much is it going to cost me? What is the max number that this thing is going to cost me? And so that's why I asked them to put a do not exceed. This is max number.
And I understand that. However, if we're spending much less than 265, I don't want us to feel like all of a sudden we got $100,000 to blow.
No, sir, we don't. These dollars carry over year, so this board will have the ability to talk about what those other priorities, to Ms. Holt's point, that you'll be able to have discussions around maybe things you didn't think you could do, because you said, all right, well, a year from now, the conditions, the needs, and the priorities might be different.
And we only have 2 more years because we have to spend it, budget it by the 24.
If there are no more questions, I will turn it over to Mr. Taylor for the construction update.
Construction update, Mr. Taylor. Come on down. See how we can mess with you this time.
All right, so for the construction update, again, we'll start with Hendersonville High School, where work continues as planned. Again, looking here, starting with the auditorium, where you can see the pictures where it's been, again, cleared out, and what you see is missing are the chairs. And so to kind of give you some updates of where we're at in finishing this space so that it'll be ready for the senior play at the end of April. The seating, the holdup with it was that half of that order was in a container in a harbor, and it stayed there for over a month. And so we had half of the order here ready to go, and then the other half sat there for a month and a half. And so it has arrived, and actually Wednesday is when those chairs will begin being installed in that space. For the curtains and the light calibration, those are scheduled for next week. And then the carpet will go in as well in the aisle in that front area in the sound.
So when do you think be complete?
So again, the seating begins Wednesday. So this month is hopefully when all of that is completed, and then they can say it's ready for the season.
By the end of March?
But yes, sir. Yeah. Well, what they plan on is going over the final punch list by April 1st. That is the date that they've said is going through that final punch list.
They have to have it ready by the end of the school year so they can have they're practicing the senior play on it.
Yes, they began last week. They turned it over to the theater teacher and students to begin their rehearsals in that space. So it is safe for student use at this time in that temporary way, so that they can begin doing what they need for that senior play to be ready at the end of April.
That sure looks good, though.
It is. It is looking nice, and once the chairs are in, then of course that's when you'll.
Are they going to put the red curtains all in there like it was before? You know, those blackout curtains.
You know, I'll have to ask that question in terms of I imagine that it is red curtains, but I don't want to answer that question without having confirmation. But again, those are scheduled to go in next week. Okay. Again, here's just another photo inside, and then on the outside, as you look at those light fixtures, those are the original light fixtures that Vinoy sent off to be refurbished, and so now they're back up. And so they, again, just another historical piece that remains there at the Stillwell.
And those doors will not look like that when it's done.
Correct, yes. So there's some precast work that is being done that will go into those spaces. If the precast is not ready by the senior play performance, Vinoy's going to go ahead and put brick in there temporarily so that it looks better for the performance, but then they will remove the brick when the precast arrives to put it to that finished touch that it's supposed to be. Keeping up with the theme of auditoriums, here is a picture of what North Henderson's auditorium now looks like. They came in last week and demoed out all of the chairs, and so they are ready to begin installing chairs, I believe, next week. As they transition to the installation of chairs there at North, they're going to transition to Apple Valley in removing the chairs there in that auditorium space. And then after our April board meeting is when they plan on coming in here and beginning the demo work in this space as well. Again, here's just a quick list of all of the projects that we do have going on or planned to occur. So again, paving and roofing, that's been on there all year with these construction updates. So this spring, hopefully, the weather will cooperate with the paving, and hopefully those roofing materials do become available so that work can be completed. Again, the auditorium seating we just discussed. The warehouse, that work is in progress with an estimated completion date in June. For the video management at our high schools and middle schools, that work is beginning this week, where they're going to start pulling wire. They have a list of schools that they'll work through and pull in the wire, and then as the cameras become available, they'll go back in and connect those cameras as well. And then the east and west auditoriums, that lighting, again, the RFP is in the process of being completed so that we can begin soliciting vendors for that work. And then the last one I mentioned earlier tonight about the stadium's ADA, those bids have been completed, and so we are waiting to finalize that contract and be able to present that to you again, hopefully at the April board meeting. All right, so at this time I'll answer any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
And it may not relate to the construction, but what's the status of renaming the auditorium at Hendersonville High School?
I would defer to Dr. Bryan on that one.
The board tabled that issue at the last meeting. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Right.
That
Thank
was
you.
an easy one.
That was. I appreciate that.
Maybe we should lead.
Take it
with
easy
that
on me on
time.
policies.
We'll
so it's-
lead with construction, come back with calendars.
I appreciate it. All right. Hope you all have a great evening.
Appreciate it. Equity update, Dr. Wendy Fry.
All right, it is my pleasure to show you pictures. Have I mentioned we have the best teachers in the world? Okay, so as you know, February 25th was a remote learning day, and our teachers participated in staff development across the district. Specifically, I want to speak with you about what our elementary teachers were doing that day. They were participating in letters training. As a reminder, here's the acronym for what that stands for. Is required by the state for all of our elementary teachers. Based on the science of reading, it feels like a college level course, is what I'm told by the folks who are participating in it now. It's K-5 teachers, including our EC teachers and our ELL teachers. We already have middle school teachers who are requesting to take this, and we currently have some of our staff who are training to be facilitators, so we can expand to whoever in the district would like to take this. So it's a virtual delivery, and you're going to see some pictures of our teachers participating in it. Talking facilitates learning. We have known that for quite some time, and you'll see in many spaces that our teachers, while it's a virtual training, they're sitting in the same classroom so they can digest the information together. The pictures and quotes you're about to see are from our very own teachers and administrators. I'm excited because it isn't a program, but rather the science behind how to teach reading effectively. It's interesting. I'm enjoying the language systems portion of it. Linguistics has always been a passion of mine. It's amazing how many components go into reading and how the brain processes each part differently. How the brain works and how this relates to reading and language. So much of this is not a part of what our teachers got when they were going through school to learn to become elementary teachers. So they see the value in this training. I enjoyed it. My favorite part was learning how to read a paragraph in Greek. Reminds us what it feels like to learn to read, what the students might be experiencing. Reading is layers of learning that build on one another, and take a look at the layers that this teacher mentioned. So this is a longer quote. I won't read it all to you, but again, more about the intricacies of how a child's brain learns to read based on the science of reading. Our potential to teach more students how to become accurate, atomic readers in early grades. Again, as I told you, our teachers like to work together, so again, sharing the same space as they go through this learning so they can talk about it. Here are a couple of quotes from administrators. I want you to look at the end of the quote from Katie Bradley, 3 exclamation points. And I got to tell you, it is so similar to coaching basketball. It is unreal. I love that quote. And then from Tammy Deaver, seeing a PD, and those of you who are former educators especially, you know the value. And when we provide PD, it needs to be something that teachers feel like they can use tomorrow, right? And principals certainly value that. I will tell you this. We have had comments from teachers saying they wish that it would move a little faster. And as you might imagine from a gifted group as ours, we are not accustomed to having time to digest information in so many different ways. And this training allows for that, and we know that's best practice. So we have teachers say, wow, we're talking about, we're learning about on February 25th what I had already been reading about and practicing. Yes, we are, the pace of this training is allowing time for teachers to digest that information so that it does become automatic. So couldn't say enough good about that, and I wanted to share those pictures and quotes with you. The other thing I wanted to share with you tonight as we think about removing barriers, you're familiar with the JAG program we have had at the Career Academy for the last few years. Our Virginia Haynes got that kicked off for us, and we have experienced all kind of success with that program. Well, as is the case when someone does a good job, Virginia was scooped up and is now the state director. It's a program that's in 8 North Carolina schools, and you may remember last year we had 100% graduation rate of students who participated in the JAG program, Jobs for America's Graduates. Not only do they help prepare students for the world of work once they leave us, they follow them and provide support for that next entire year after they leave us, and we know how crucial that can be. Wanted to brag on these folks. They came home with several awards from a recent statewide event, but a little picture is more than words. So here are their happy, smiling faces. We are super proud of them and just certainly value the work that we see taking place in the JAG program, and want to continue supporting that, and hopefully can expand that program. We understand there's a middle school component. We're taking a look at that to see exactly what that could offer students as well. That is my equity update. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. All right, Scott Rhodes, Child Care Services update.
Thank you, Mr. Craven. So child care update for the projections of February 2022, revenues of $101,736 with an expenditures of $69,571.08 with an operational profit of $32,164.92. Any questions?
And that's fiscal year, right?
So where does that money go?
Goes into the child nutrition. Child care.
Somebody's
child nutrition. I've been sitting over a while.
Going to be I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying the profits. That's where they go.
Yes, goes into their fund balance right now.
Because we have not been able to replenish a lot of the materials and supplies for so long. I'm thinking hopefully we'll be able to start doing some of that.
So I'm really looking forward to next month. And we're going to be bringing you some information as it relates to child care and some big ideas.
Good.
And when I say big ideas, some big ideas. It's going to be exciting to report some information to you.
And that's just our monthly, correct? Our monthly profits. So, I mean, when you think about possibly giving those raises
Well, one of the things that you're going to hear a bigger spill in April. But some of the things that, again, that we're taking into account, Mr. Social will tell you, we just increased rates to $13 an hour, and it's getting ready to go to 15 starting in July. And that's going to have a huge impact to our overall budget. So we're having some good numbers, we're having some success, and we've got some grant money that we're going to be able to talk to you about. It's really going to give you as a board some opportunities to really make some decisions that have an impact across all of our elementary schools. So I really look forward to bringing you that information next month.
He's going to make us wait.
I know.
Yeah, but it'll be worth it.
I can't wait.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you.
Mr. Social, financial statements.
Yes, sir. Just the local current expense and other restricted funds this month, as of February 28th. Our revenues for the year, $25.3 million, and expenditures just short of $19 million. We did pay the local retention bonus last month, but as you recall, that was paid with ESSER funds, so there was no impact to the local budget on that one. We did begin paying the new salary schedules in January, and in February we started with that retroactive payment because those salary schedules were effective back to July 1, and we will continue to do that and catch a large group of them are going to be caught in the March payroll. So as that actually plays out, it will be April this year before anyone sees what their normal paycheck for the year will look like, thanks to the way the budget all played out with the General Assembly this year. So they'll get April and May regular paychecks this year.
How are we looking with the last couple of months of the fiscal year?
We're looking good. We're gonna end up on the right side of zero again this year. It's definitely gonna be impacted because of the change in the salary schedules that happened so far into the year with no planning for that to that level. But we are in good shape.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Social? All right. General operations, Dr. Bryant.
Yes, sir, and again, just want to credit our finance team and finance department for that kind of work, because it is no small task to do that work and to do it well. At the request of Ms. Case, as we look at general operations, I want to talk a little bit about the follow-up questions that we were directed to explore a little bit more information about, and it related to some of the outliers associated with state demonstrated or state elected bonuses. Remember that in January of 2022, the state told us a whole series of bonuses that had to be paid to various groups of people. And one of the ones that kind of brought some question to this group was the state said, we're going to take all of the EVOS bonus money that's normally paid to principals annually. We're going to divide it equally among principals. We're going to pay each of them $1,800. Principals are eligible for growth bonuses just like teachers are. But they left a group of people out of that, specifically of that one, assistant principals. And so when the question was posed, are any of our assistant principals receiving that particular bonus, the answer was no. And the question was then posed, should this board consider doing any of that work? The teachers received the same EVOS bonus. Rather than being paid individually for growth bonuses, they took all of that bonus money and divided it up essentially equally among all teachers and paid everybody $300 to all teachers across the board. And so at the request of this board, Mr. Socia and his team, along with Mr. Rhodes, kind of put together some information for this board to consider, because the question was, should this board allocate local dollars to pay bonuses to staff members who were left out of some of those specific bonuses? It's important to remember this key feature, the state-directed bonuses to everybody. Everybody received something, depending on what category they were in. For example, if you were just an employee, you got $1,000. If you were an employee that made less than $75,000, you got an additional $500. So, for example, all assistant principals got that money but didn't get the principal bonus. Teachers received the most of those bonuses based on they were essentially eligible in every category. So groups that would have not been considered for those EVOS bonuses, and again, just kind of walk through the board. Assistant principals, and there's 29 of them. So if the board were going to consider paying those individuals $300 per se, like teachers received, that would cost you about $9,000, and then with benefits, retirement, and everything that we have to pay to it, it'd be about $11,500. Teacher assistants, there's 197 of them in our system. They did not receive that $300 either, as it relates to instructional support. That would be, if you were to pay out that 300, it'd be about $59,000 with benefits and everything. You're talking 78,000 roughly. We have OT and PT individuals who did not receive that. There are 9 of them. That would cost about $3,500. We have office support personnel. Those are the folks that work the front office desks and support the administrative end of things. There are 62 of those individuals. That would cost about $24,500. And we have custodians, none of whom were eligible for that category as well as it related to those performance bonuses. There are 80 custodians in our system. That would cost us about $31,500 all in. So just as an example, those are all the categories of people who were left out of just that EVOS bonus. Now, these are not people that are ever eligible for it. They're not people who can receive it in the future or ever received it in the past. If those individuals received that $300, you sort of circled on all those groups, that'd cost the board about $150,000.
And we can only take this from local?
Yes, ma'am. You would be making an allocation from fund balance because there's no funding source for this. Remember, again, the state said, here's what we're going to direct you to do, and then they sent us the money to do it. But they did not make everyone eligible for all categories. And if the board were to make that as a discretionary decision, which is what we were tasked with doing, is think about who got left out of those particular ones, EVOS being included, that's what you would be doing. And then, of course, if the board were to direct dollar amounts in excess of $300 per person, then you could do the math accordingly on that front.
So we cannot use ESSER funds because?
The ESSER money has to be used in response to, as a result of, or in preparation for, dealing with a future pandemic or operations related to that. This particular query doesn't fall in any of those eligible categories because we're just trying to pay people who didn't get paid by the state, which is not related to that work. And so when we look at those eligible categories, we're not saying that people aren't deserving, and we didn't decide what the state decided. Right? The state got to say, you get $1,000, you get $1,800, you get $500, you get $300. What this board did was when we said we were going to pay a retention bonus, we paid everybody. We paid this board, when it was your choice, you paid everybody. You paid every full-time employee, you paid every part-time employee, and every full-time employee, regardless of job status and regardless of how much money they made, got $2,000. So if I was a teacher assistant or a custodian or a principal or a full-time teacher and I'm full-time, I got $2,000. What was complicated is that the state of North Carolina said, here's how we're going to do it. And of course, that's going to leave people out. And so if the board wants to explore what I would call any of those categories, it's important to understand that there were lots of categories of people that were left out. And like I said, trying to articulate those costs for you.
But what was insulting was they said these people are non-instructional. Well, forget that. We can't instruct without these people behind us. So.
Amen. Amen. And we couldn't agree with you more. One of the most frustrating features was when they defined instructional support personnel and they left teacher assistants out.
Right.
We said, we literally call these folks instructional assistants. They are critical parts of that work. We didn't write that definition. Right. We had to communicate it. And Mr. Rhodes, as you all saw the video, the screencast that he did, walking through so that our employees would understand decisions that were not ours. They were not our decisions, but we wanted people to understand which eligible categories they fell in. But I agree with you. It was terribly insulting to tell people that they're not part of the instructional mission. And so again, this board was not consulted about how those bonuses were paid or who they would be paid to or otherwise. And it's just very important to understand that there were a lot of groups of people that were left out of those dollar amounts.
Can you tell us what we have in fund balance, Bernie? Around, and what is it that, I know we've talked about what you suggest we have in there, what range is that?
It exceeds the goal that we were tasked with getting to this past year, partly in response to the effort that we had with using the ESSER funds first, saving our local dollars for the end of the ESSER funds to try and continue programs beyond ESSER and not have to just have a cliff and say, oh, ESSER's out, we have to stop all of these things.
Okay.
We did set 2 targets, because we'll talk about this in the budget process again, that while the board has the ability to allocate those dollars anytime, we've really talked about a percentage of our local current expense so that we functionally have some flexibility when needs arise. And we've also talked about the ability to essentially cash our largest check. And so when we write payroll to all of our employees in November and June, that's our largest check. And we always want our fund balance to be, that's been a target in excess of that amount.
Does this make you nervous if we spent that $150,000? I know spending money makes you nervous, but.
$150 makes me nervous.
We just cut a check for $4 million, right? Like literally just cut a check for $4 million.
To be honest, the dollars don't make me as nervous as the precedent that we would be setting by selecting a group of employees and providing a bonus with them.
We can write those same legislators that were mad about the calendar law and tell them that we're mad that they didn't put these people in there.
It's not right at all. The state does not recognize the instructional value of these categories.
Right.
And I wish we could make it right, but wow, I think that's a precedent that we need to think about.
I could not agree to pick one category and say we're just going to fund.
No, that's why we write a check for $4 million for everybody.
Right.
But I don't think we go behind the state and say, okay, now that these people didn't get it, we go and we pay this and pay that and this person and that person. Because it started as APs, and now it's grown.
Well, it's not that it's grown, it's just we want to make sure you had a clear picture of who you'd be selecting, because everyone's deserving of it.
Yes.
And I think the precedent that this board has the opportunity to continue to set is the one that is fundamentally beneficial to every employee. And that's when we've set our sights on a continued increase of the local supplement. We talked about it as part of the budget process. We talked about it as inclusive of the other, that as we continue to move the local supplement, even incrementally, even if it's 0.25%, even if it's 0.5%, that touches every employee and it touches them every year. These state bonuses, these one-time bonuses, feel good in the moment because you receive them, and everybody is certainly deserving of them. What we know organizationally is every time we move the supplement forward, it touches everybody every year, year over year over year. And so I think prioritizing that is an opportunity for us. But to Mrs. Case's point, it was disrespectful and unfair, and it certainly put our employees, it made them feel devalued in a way that isn't right. You know, it certainly is not right. It wasn't your choice, though, and I think it's really important for the public to understand, and certainly for our employees to understand, where you had the ability to make that decision, you wrote the check to everybody.
Cool.
So I have some good news. I got a text from a friend that's a teacher, and she said we need to get a quote from GE. GE just required Hubble, who does sports lights. So let's go find GE and get a quote from them. That's pretty awesome. They're local as well.
We'll put it out. We'll make sure we share the bid information with them.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's all the follow-up that I had. Just would make a couple of notes for you on the general operations that you see here on the top. Once again, this is We Are Hope Week. We have activities planned for this week at our schools, but also our banner signing is Friday. An opportunity if you want to participate at the courthouse at noon, correct, Molly? Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. So noon if you want to participate in that. You received an invite from Mrs. Alfrey earlier today that the lead showcase, it takes place at North, is a virtual event. That actually happens tomorrow at 2 o'clock. If you've got some time to log in, awesome chance to see our kids.
That's a national thing.
Yes, ma'am. That's not just them. That is them being broadcast nationwide, as one of our model schools. So again, a huge, huge deal for them. And then, of course, we'll tour again in April and our board meeting again there, remembering that our offices and schools across the board are closed this Friday, our spring break for traditional calendar and intercession coincide. So we'll all be closed next week. Other than that, that's all I have, sir.
Anything else from anybody?
It's the wrong way. Dr. Fry, when we were being interviewed by the accreditation lead, she said that they were going to be doing their exit interview. Is it Wednesday? I think. And she invited us to be a part of that. So I don't know if maybe you could shoot out that link to us or whatever in time.
I think you said it was the same link, but I don't know what.
Same, right, she sure did. She said the same link. But anyway, I think this is big for our Career Academy to get this accreditation and go under this review. So.
Maybe I'll show up on time on that one. I'm so sorry.
Anyway.
Anything else from anybody? Good to go? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.